Chapter 1131. The commoners were not fools. Since ancient times, there was the saying of returning a plum for a peach. A wise ruler would be supported everywhere. The great Liang soldiers were about to return home. To return home after a victorious battle was a glorious matter. Those families that had people who joined the army and were still alive would naturally have light on their faces. Even the corpses buried on the battlefield, even though it was regretful, they were also proud. The commoners in Longyi City were practically running and jumping in joy, waiting for the victorious army to return. Compared to the liveliness of the commoners, the palace was cold and cheerless. Luo Tan sat in the courtyard. It was rare to see such a warm sun in an autumn day, shining on one's body, making one feel warm. The courtyard was covered with books, and Jingzhe and Guyu were drying the books. Luo Tan looked at it and laughed. Previously in the Shaochun city, she would always take these books out to dry. I felt that the books would not spoil, so what is there to dry? But she was so particular about it. Did not think that now, it was me who took the initiative to do these things for her. The green-clad male standing beside her did not speak. Pei Lang seemed to have aged a lot in one night. He did things silently. Without Shen Miao's instructions, he could not look at the booklet. Every day he could only read the books and not do anything else. This kind of feudal days seemed to be very painful for him. There was not a bit of joyous atmosphere in the palace. Aunt Tao walked out with 2 children in her arms. Luo Tan quickly stood up and took one of them. The young masters are all very healthy. Tao Gugu smiled. Wet Mother said that they are very obedient at night and did not make any noise. There was also a smile on Luo Tan's face as she said, to be this obedient, it really follows Mother's temperament. Her voice stopped abruptly. Pei Lang's gaze landed on the 2 children and his eyes slightly dimmed. Which is the elder brother and which is the younger brother, I really cannot differentiate at all. Luo Tan diverted the topic, they are exactly the same. If it is like this now, what can be done in the future? Tao Gugu smiled, it is not a hindrance. In the future one can change clothes and dress up to differentiate. Moreover, when the children grow up, their temperament would be different, so naturally one would be able to differentiate clearly. But how to be called? Luo Tan was vexed, which is the elder brother and which is the younger brother? Biao, youngest sister, did not even have time to give them names. She squatted for a moment and then laughed in annoyance. I always say not to mention, but I always mention. Forget it. When Tao Gugu saw this, she wanted to say a few words of comfort but saw Guyu and Jingzhe rushing in from outside. Guyu said, Prince Wang has returned. What? Pei Lang and Luo Tan were both stunned. According to the speed of the Great Liang's army, there should be more than a month before they returned to the capital. Prince of the first rank had brought men and horses back alone. Guyu whispered, but Furen, after a pause, Pei Lang said softly, let's go and take a look. Xie Jingxing strode into the palace. The short span of a year was enough to change many things. Emperor Yonglu and Empress Xianda both passed away, and the large palace seemed to have become much more deserted. Eunuch Deng smiled and said, Your Highness, please go and see the 2 young masters first. Tao Gugu and Miss Luo are playing with them. Xie Jingxing frowned, what about Shen Miao? Before his voice landed, he saw Luo Tan and Tao Gugu carrying a child walking over from the back of the hall, with Pei Lang following behind them. The infant in the swaddling clothes had just woken up and was waving his little hands in a lively manner. The chubby little hands were exceptionally cute under the sun. Xie Jingxing's footsteps paused. What about Shen Miao? He slowly opened his mouth. Pei Lang took a step forward and said softly, Go and see her. Chapter 1132. Gao Zhan stroked his white beard and shook his head. this old one had tried my best to save her life. This body was like a dried-up oil lamp, but she had a strong will to live. Perhaps there was something that she was not reconciled to and was not willing to take her last breath. With that last breath, this old one used the golden needles to seal her acupuncture points and saved her life. But it was only saving her one life. "Grandfather, what is the meaning of this?" Gao Yang asked. He had left home for many years, and when he embarked on his official career, he went against the Gao family's ideals and was expelled from the family. There had been no contact with the Gao family for many years. This grandfather actually made Gao Zhan's body slightly tremble. The meaning is that perhaps she will sleep forever. Even though she is breathing and has a pulse, she will never wake up and never be able to open her eyes. Perhaps she will wake up, but... He looked at Gao Yang, just like the young master of the Yi family that you treated. After she wakes up, no one knows what she will be like. That was to say that after Shen Miao woke up, perhaps she would become as silly as Yi Hongguang. But there was a greater possibility that she would continue to sleep like this year after year and finally die of old age without opening her eyes to look at Xie Jingxing, isn't that? Ji Yushu swallowed down the words living dead. But even if he did not say it out, the surrounding people also understood the meaning of Gao Zhan's words. In this case, Gao Zhan asked Xie Jingxing, "Your Highness, are you still willing to wait? There is no harm in waiting for as long as it takes." Xie Jingxing said, "She had fulfilled her promise to wait for my return. So what if I wait for her for a lifetime? Her life is mine, and without my permission, even King of Hell cannot take it away." When he spoke, his eyes were cold and had the coldness of Emperor Yonglu, but it still had his own unbridled arrogance, as if he did not put anything in his eyes. Everyone was silent. Shen Miao's eyes were closed and could not hear these sounds. She seemed to be sleeping very soundly. Luo Tan said, "Go out and let her rest for some days." For this 1 year, she had not had a good rest. Xie Jingxing treated that pair of babies extremely well. The subordinates and good friends that had followed him for many years were so shocked that their jaws almost dropped when they saw his patient look. It was said that although young fathers were very happy to be a father, because of their natural carelessness, they would always resist taking care of their children. And with Xie Jingxing's character, how could he be gentle and patient? However, contrary to everyone's expectations, he spent time with the 2 children every day. Not only did he not mind doing it himself, but he was also picky about the wet nurse. As a man, he had to ask about every little thing. The 2 children only had nicknames which were given by Xie Jingxing. One was called First Day, and the other was 15th Day. Everyone felt that this nickname was too casual, but Xie Jingxing argued, "The moon is the roundest on the 1st and 15th of the first month. Moreover, it is my own son. What does it have to do with you all? Get lost." Everyone could only scram. But he couldn't care less about anything. He didn't care about naming the baby, he didn't care about taking care of the baby. He still had to do what needed to be done. Emperor Yongli's imperial edict was known to the entire court. Now that the world was at peace, Xie Jingxing also wanted to ascend the throne. Ascending the throne naturally took its course, but what about establishing an empress? Who should he appoint? Shen Miao was still lying down, and perhaps she would not wake up in this lifetime. Perhaps when she woke up, she would be an idiot. There was no precedent of such an empress in any of the previous dynasties. It did not seem possible. The days in the future were too long and people's hearts would change. Xie Jingxing could say that he was loyal to Shen Miao now, but who could say for sure in the future? When Luo Tan heard the news, she was very unwilling. The Shen family's army came back together with the great Liang's army and had not reached Longyi country yet. Thus she did not know about Shen Miao's matter. As Shen Miao's only relative, Luo Tan was not willing to see Shen Miao being wronged. She was even more unwilling that Shen Miao had sacrificed everything but did not get anything. Chapter 1133. She could not scold Xie Jingxing because Xie Jingxing himself did not do anything wrong, so she told him about Shen Miao's hard work in this 1 year. She said that Shen Miao guarded Longyi, the imperial palace and the great Liang's imperial family's dignity with her big belly. There were so many times when it was obviously very dangerous, but Shen Miao still managed to withstand it. She did not need to be like this. Xie Jingxing listened to Luo Tan's words in silence and looked at her with a smile that was not a smile, so? Luo Tan did not know what to say and said, "So it is fine if you know it in your heart." She could not describe the feeling in her heart. It was suffocating and awkward, but she did not know how to relieve it. As she was running, she bumped into a person. When she looked up, it was Gao Yang. Gao Yang felt strange and asked her what was wrong. Luo Tan glared at him fiercely before leaving. Xie Jingxing walked to the pond and wanted to drink tea, but at the end he called Deng Gonggong to remove the tea and bring a pot of wine. At the side of the pond, under the moonlight, this was the last snow wine that Empress Xianda and Emperor Yongle drank. Everyone sighed that the Emperor and Empress were deeply in love, but the heavens were unfair. On the surface, he was indeed luckier than Emperor Yongle. At least he was still alive, and as long as he was alive, everything was possible. But what if Shen Miao did not wake up for the rest of her life? If she lived like this, would she lose a lot of interest in the rest of her life? Xie Jingxing did not have much enthusiasm for the throne, and if he lost the people around him, it would be a very sad thing to live a boring life for the rest of his life. Someone's footsteps were heard, and when one looked towards the direction of the sound, it was Pei Lang. Pei Lang was like a gentle and modest gentleman, as if he did not drink a drop of wine in his entire life. Seeing such a person, one would feel that he should be a proud and aloof scholar drinking tea and playing the zither. However, he sat down opposite Xie Jingxing, looked for a wine cup, and poured himself a cup of wine. The wine cup made of jade emitted a glimmer under the moonlight, intoxicating people even before they drank it. Pei Lang said, "Tomorrow you will ascend the throne. Congratulations." Xie Jingxing's lips hooked up in a smile but did not seem to be happy. "What about her?" Pei Lang went straight to the point. "What do you plan to do?" Xie Jingxing slowly turned his head and stared at Pei Lang for a while before saying, "Is Mr. Pei very concerned?" "Previously, I had a teacher-student relationship with Wang Fei." Pei Lang was unmoved and continued to speak. "After the imperial city was in danger, we could be considered friends in times of adversity. I don't want to accuse you of changing anything. I'm just curious." "Oh." Xie Jingxing lowered his head to drink a mouthful of wine and lightly said, "What do you think should be done?" Qin Wang Fei once mentioned that she was not greedy for the position of Empress or any other position of power. Instead, she felt that it was a burden. However, if this was her responsibility, she would bear it. She is not a compassionate person, but she is willing to bear the burden for the people important to her. This important person includes the relatives of the Shen family, the child in her belly, and you. Pei Lang said. Qin Wang Fei said that her life has always been exceptionally rough. The heavens have also been very harsh to her. Sometimes, thinking from the beginning, it seems that she has never encountered any good times. Therefore, he never dared to hope for the blessings of the heavens. The only extravagant hope I had was for the people I love to be safe and happy." Xie Jingxing's eyes moved slightly. Pei Lang turned his head to look at him and said with a smile, she had never encountered any good times before. Things that others could easily obtain, she had to put in great effort to obtain. Even some of the smallest wishes were harder for her than others. Now that the bitterness is over and the sweetness is here, she had fallen into a deep sleep before drinking the sweet dew. The heavens are really too unfair to her. But it is precisely because she never had any extravagant requests from the human heart that she is more pitiful and admirable. Chapter 1134. Your Highness Prince of First Rank. Pei Lang held the wine cup in his hand and smiled. Now that you have accomplished your great undertaking and ascended the throne is in sight. You have the country and perhaps there will be beauties in the future. But I still have to remind you not to let yourself regret. His voice was slightly low. If one regrets, there would be no chance to turn back in this lifetime. Every day of pain is torture. Xie Jingxing looked at him thoughtfully and asked, You have regretted it before? Once and tried my best to redeem it. Even though I managed to redeem some of it, but what was lost could not be regained. Pei Lang sighed. Both of them were silent. Just at this moment, Tao Gugu rushed over and upon seeing Xie Jingxing and Pei Lang drinking, she said awkwardly, Your Highness, the two young masters are crying non-stop and the wet nurse and old woman could not do anything. It is better for you to go and take a look. The 1st and 15th days were coaxed by Xie Jingxing every day and their temperament was very arrogant. No matter how others coaxed them, they could not do anything but Xie Jingxing coaxed them. Speaking of which, it was strange. Shen Miao's temperament was very calm and would not give trouble to others, but she gave birth to 2 children that seemed to be here to collect debts. It was still all right previously, but once Xie Jingxing came back, his temper grew. It was fortunate that Xie Jingxing was patient with children. If it was another young father, one feared that they would have already flung their sleeves and quit. Xie Jingxing got up and said, I will go and take a look. Suddenly he thought of something and turned to look at Pei Lang. He stared at him and said, This person of yours is very interesting. But many thanks for your reminder. He drank the remaining wine in the cup in one gulp and said, I never do anything that I regret and also do not do anything that would make others regret. You worry too much. Xie Jingxing and Tao Gugu left. Looking at their backs, Pei Lang shook his head and laughed at himself before muttering, Worry too much. His expression gradually became bitter. Really, do not give others a chance at all. So hateful. On the day of Xie Jingxing's ascension, the sky was bright and the sun was warm and the wind was clear. It was called Shaojing. The 9-tiered palace stood tall and majestic. Dragons danced above the throne room. Hundreds of officials stood in front and courtiers stood to the left and right. The young emperor had changed into a peacock-feathered dragon robe made of gold. The yellow robe was embroidered with golden threads. The corners of the robe were fine and exquisite. It was majestic and dazzling, causing others to be unable to look at it directly. His appearance was peerlessly handsome and he wore a proper crown. However, he had a pair of frivolous peach blossom eyes. Even so, wherever his gaze passed, it was like the cold wind in October, filled with killing intent. No one dared to belittle this young emperor. Even though he was the youngest person to ascend the throne in the history of the Great Liang, but he had truly carried the war flag and went to the battlefield, sweeping away the military generals of the Qin country and Ming Qi. In the imperial court, he was good at using crafty schemes and forced people into a sorry state. The imperial edict of succession had been established, the imperial jade seal was in his hands. From now on, the Great Liang dynasty, the world would welcome a new master. After the ceremony, he unexpectedly walked to one side. The courtiers did not dare to raise their heads until they heard the emperor's voice, appoint an empress. Everyone knew that Qin Wangfei was currently in a long sleep, so why would she suddenly appoint an empress? Everyone was puzzled and when they looked up, they saw that the young emperor was hugging a female and placing her on the empress seat at the other side. His actions were very careful, as if he was handling a rare treasure. Among the courtiers, other than Gao Yang, Ji Yushu and a few others, the rest of them revealed a shocked expression. Someone came forward and said, Your Majesty, you must not. Oh. Emperor Xiao Jing turned his head and looked at him. His eyes turned and smiled, why not? Duh. Furen is still not awake. How can the mother of the country be an unconscious person? Chapter 1135. One had never heard of any country's empress being someone who had not woken up. Cannot do it. Emperor Xiao Jing seemed to be deliberately teasing him. Jin wants to do it, so what? That official was an old official, and when Emperor Yonglu was alive, he was very respectful towards him and seemed to be very confident. Could it be that your majesty wants to leave the empress position empty forever because of her? The officials were in an uproar. A person who had been asleep for a long time would always occupy the empress position. Even if it was just a title, the meaning it represented was very different. In the future, even if there were new beauties entering the palace, as long as the empress position would always be occupied, then the position of these women's children would never be able to surpass the 1st and 15th. Emperor Xiao Jing laughed softly until the officials were somewhat dazed. He laughed until the official who spoke first panicked. One heard the emperor said, "Empty empress position. There is only one woman in Jin's inner palace. How can it be empty?" Everyone was shocked. "Your Majesty." That old official wanted to speak. "Official Su, Jin, remember that you have 2 little granddaughters in your room and they are in the prime of their youth." Emperor Xiao Jing said. That person was startled and his heart was anxious, but there was a faint secret joy. But the next moment, the secret joy disappeared and one could only hear the emperor saying, "How about Jin betroth her to young General Song of Wuguan?" That young General Song was young and promising, but it was a pity that he was blinded in one eye on the battlefield and would not have a future in this lifetime. Official Su's face suddenly turned ashen. Zhen is not here to listen to your opinions or to listen to your criticism. Zhen is only here to inform you of this result. He sat on the emperor's throne and looked down at the officials. Zhen is the son of heaven, the master. If any of you have any opinion on the orders that Jin gives, feel free to raise it. But if it is about Jin's inner palace and Jin's private affairs, then Jin will definitely, he thought for a moment, return it double. At that time, do not say that Jin is randomly matchmaking. He laughed mischievously and in a moment, he returned to the handsome youth that rode a horse lazily on the streets and alleys of Mingqi. It was just that at this time, he had already hidden all his sharpness under the sheath. Even though the sheath looked magnificent, no one dared to try if it was pulled out to cut iron like mud. "If you don't believe me, feel free to try me," he said with a faint smile. He really did not look like an emperor. He was not serious enough, but he looked more dangerous than the emperors of the past. He was comparable to Emperor Yongla. The more he acted like he didn't care, the more it made people's hearts beat fast. Everyone knew that this Prince Rui was a black-bellied fellow. If you were targeted by him, you wouldn't even know how you died. Most importantly, he completely disregarded etiquette and reputation. He was not afraid of anything. Everyone believed that Emperor Xiao Jing would definitely do something like marrying this official's granddaughter to another official's younger brother, or marrying this official's grandson to the daughter of his sworn enemy. It was fine if they weren't of the same social class, but what he was afraid of was the result of being restrained. If this restriction coincidentally met with the spearhead, the clan wouldn't even know when it would weaken and disappear. No one dared to use their clan as a bargaining chip. Everyone thought, forget it. Now that it was a honeyed atmosphere, Emperor Xiao Jing would dare to do whatever he wanted. Perhaps after a few more days, he would be tired of it or be infatuated with a new beauty. Men, when they love, it is true love, and when they do not love, they really do not love. Why do we have to do these arduous and unrewarding things here? With this thought, the officials were relieved. They did not say anything more, and there were even those who flattered and said that Emperor Xiao Jing and Furen were deeply in love with each other, which became a much-told story. Chapter 1136. Xie Jingxing coldly looked at the faces of the officials, as if he was looking at all the living beings in the world through 1,000 red and purple masks. It was somewhat ridiculous but pitiful. He half knelt down in front of Shen Miao. Men have gold under their knees. Even if it was an ordinary man, it was really surprising to do such an action. Moreover, he was not an ordinary person, but the current emperor of the Great Liang, the master of the world. But he was half kneeling in front of a female in such a pious manner. Shen Miao was properly supported by him and sat on the high seat. She was also led by Tao Gugu to wear a gorgeous palace dress, and the corners of her eyes were sprinkled with fine gold powder, making her look very arrogant. Wearing the golden Empress court dress, her eyes were closed and her long eyelashes hung down, as if she was in a deep sleep. She was really a very beautiful and tough female. Gao Zhan said that Shen Miao had an unfulfilled wish, so she fought with her last breath to survive, thus Gao Zhan was able to save her life. Then what was her last wish? To see Xie Jingxing one more time, to see the 1st and 15th days grow up, or to bid farewell to Shen Xian and the rest. Xie Jingxing leaned over to her ear and teased, "Bring you to be an empress, do you not open your eyes to take a look?" Shen Miao could not hear what he said. She was in a deep sleep in her own world, as if she was going to sleep for a long time, for a lifetime. Xie Jingxing stared at her and said, "Know that you are tired. Get up after sleeping enough. One must look for mother on the 1st and 15th days." He stretched out his hand and held Shen Miao's cold hands. "I also miss you very much." The officials silently watched the young emperor do all this. They had been in the imperial court for many years, experiencing the ups and downs of the official world. Sometimes, they couldn't even distinguish their own hearts, not to mention being moved by others. In addition, Prince Rui was not considered a good person in the past, and there were not many officials that were not cheated by him, thus they gnashed their teeth in hatred towards him. But at this moment, they were somewhat reluctant to disturb this scene. It was as if through the picture of the emperor and the female, they could see some of their own shadows when they were young. Everyone would love someone, but it was just that this love could not last for a lifetime. Because it was too difficult, many people would give up halfway. Those that could walk to the end were very rare. Could Emperor Xiaojing do it? Xie Jingxing fiddled with the heavy crown and placed it on Shen Miao's head. His movements were gentle and solemn, as if he had placed something else on the crown. He leaned over and kissed the woman's eyes. Time blurred and quickly retreated, as if he had returned to a certain day a long time ago. He was still a mischievous youth, and she was still advancing step by step for the imperial family of Ming Qi, protecting the Shen family with difficulty. He asked, "Shen Miao, do you want to be the empress?" No one would have thought that he would become the emperor, and she would become the empress. The world had gone round and round, and it had returned to the beginning. At the back of the throne room, Luo Tan, who was secretly watching, covered her mouth, as if she wanted to cry and laugh at the same time. She whispered, "He really made Biaomei his empress." Biaomei did not misjudge him. Behind him, Pei Lang also smiled faintly. His smile contained a sense of relief and a sense of loss, but it was mostly filled with gratification. He said, "That's great." In the spring day, apricot blossoms filled one's head, and as the breeze blew, the petals fluttered down, covering the ground with the fragrance of flowers. Birds stood on the branches and chirped, and the entire place was bustling with noise and excitement. Half a year's time passed in a blink of an eye, so fast that one could not catch anything. To the commoners of Longyi, this half a year was extremely pleasant. Perhaps it was because he had swept away the Qin country and Ming Qi, or perhaps it was because the new emperor's thoughts were very different. In short, Emperor Xiaojing was a very competent emperor. Chapter 1137. He was very generous to the people, and the new court orders made the people applaud. There was a rumor in the streets that because Emperor Xiao Jing liked to wander among the people when he was young and sympathized with the suffering of the people, he could always put himself in the people's shoes. In any case, Emperor Xiao Jing's reputation was still very popular among the people. But it was not necessarily so among the court officials. In the past, when Emperor Yongle was on the throne, he had to consider his face in everything he did. However, Emperor Xiao Jing was a lawless person. He was generous to the people but harsh to his officials. He did not care about their feelings at all. Even those old officials who boasted of their seniority could not get any advantage in front of him. What was more frightening was that he balanced the power in all places very well, and his sense of smell was sharper than a mouse. Not to mention any movements, even if there were some subtle thoughts, he would be keenly aware of it. It caused the court officials to suspect that there was a traitor in their residence and would clean up the residence when there was nothing to do. The court officials were most dissatisfied with him because in this half a year, Emperor Xiao Jing really did not accept a beauty. There was only a sleeping Empress Xin in the inner palace. This was really puzzling. In the beginning, some people thought that he just felt guilty to Empress Xin and thus made a promise. Moreover, even if the Empress position was unshakable, it would not be a problem to accept some other women. But as the days passed, this Emperor Xiao Jing's inner palace was so clean that a bird could be seen. Everyone then realized that he was not acting. Some people suspected that he spoke too confidently before, and now he could not put down his face to slap his own mouth, so he was very understanding. He sent his own daughter to Flower Jiayu, and the next day, Emperor Xiao Jing bestowed a marriage to the son of his archenemy. This time, the court officials were all in an uproar. Emperor Xiao Jing's means were really vicious. Bestowing a marriage to his archenemy, not only did he kick away the woman he did not want, he also balanced the situation and warned the officials who were ready to make a move. Killing 3 birds with 1 stone. It was too bad. Over time, the court officials did not dare to send beauties to Emperor Xiao Jing without permission. However, rumors were indispensable. A young man full of vigor, other than his unconscious wife, did not even have a woman. People could not help but wonder if he was gay. But when this rumor came out, it did not seem to affect anything. So what if the emperor was gay? He still had 2 sons, so he didn't have to worry about no one to inherit his empire. Moreover, this old man was very cunning. A scourge would live for 1,000 years. He would probably live for a long time. In short, the people submitted to him and the courtiers were obedient. The early morning sunlight was exceptionally good. Tao Gugu carried the 2 children to Xie Jingxing and said worriedly, "Emperor, you really want to bring the 2 little princes out for an outing?" Xie Jingxing held a child in each hand and straightforwardly stepped onto the carriage, and in the carriage, Shen Miao was sleeping. Xie Jingxing looked at her with a headache and said, "Sleeping for half a year, are you a pig?" Number 1 and number 15 shook their small hands and turned to look at Xie Jingxing curiously. Xie Jingxing said to the outside, "Let's go." Tai Yi waved his horse whip in resignation. His master had become the emperor and he, the leader of the Mou army, had actually become a horse driver. Xie Jingxing loved to bring the children out for an outing. Even though he was always stopped by Deng Gonggong and Uncle Tang, he was unable to stop them due to his high martial arts skills. He always said that one must let the children see the scenery at a young age, so that in the future they would not be easily blinded by the flashy world and would know what they really wanted. In fact, it was most likely an excuse, as he only wanted to bring Shen Miao out to play. The carriage stopped at Jiayang Mountain. The foot of the mountain was full of beautiful scenery. Xie Jingxing carried the children up and Nimo Qing attentively sent over a small pot of rice paste. Recently number 1 and number 15 were learning to eat rice paste. The two children were very picky about their food and could fly to the sky after drinking rice paste. As a matter of fact, Tai Yi was carrying number 1 and Imo Qing was carrying number 15. Xie Jingxing was feeding them rice paste and the two little brats were very unwilling to kick, making one's heart hurt. Xie Jingxing's anger rose and said, "Give me the children." He casually found a large red flower cloth that Jing Zhi used to tie the food basket and tied number 1 and the basket on his back. He then held number 15 in his arms and forcefully fed number 15 the rice paste. Number 15 and number 15 made a ruckus. Xie Jingxing let the Mou army to push away and not to interfere. He really went against the two little brats. A dignified ruler of a country, with a child tied on his back and another child in his arms. There was also a large red flower cloth tied on his body and he was looking at the other child with deep hatred as he fed the rice paste. Everyone in the Mou army could not bear to watch anymore. Number 15 cried out loudly and number 1 who was behind seemed to feel it and also cried loudly. Not only that, Xie Jingxing suddenly felt a burst of warmth. Too great. PP. He flew into a rage and was about to teach the two brats a lesson when he suddenly heard Jing Zhu exclaiming, "Someone is laughing." Everyone was surprised. Jing Zhu was so excited that her voice was trembling as she pointed to the carriage. "I just heard it." Shen Miao was sleeping in the carriage. The surroundings suddenly became silent. The mountain breeze gently caressed everyone's face. It was warm and had a slight tickling feeling that even the sunlight could not help but laugh. In the silence, this time it was heard clearly. There was indeed someone laughing. It was a light and familiar laughter with some familiarity. After a long time, Xie Jingxing strode over. His hands were slightly trembling but at the end he finally made up his mind and opened the curtain of the carriage. The female's brows were gentle like a begonia that had just woken up and her voice was lazy but the faint shadow in her eyes betrayed her excited mood. She tilted her head and smiled gently, "Long time no see. Little Marquise, yeah." Chapter 1138. The matter of Shen Miao waking up almost shocked the entire court. Those who slept day after day did not seem to have any signs of waking up. When no one had any hope, who knew that at this time when Xie Jingxing brought the two children out for a walk, Shen Miao woke up on her own. When the two of them returned to the palace, they almost shocked the people in the palace. Shen Xian and wife brought Shen Qiu out and when they saw Shen Miao standing in front of them, Luo Shuiyan immediately hugged Shen Miao and cried loudly. Shen Xian and Shen Qiu were stunned for a long time. Even though they did not reveal their emotions like Luo Shuiyan, their eyes could not help but turn red. Luo Tan clapped her hands to touch Shen Miao's hair and said, "Is this true? Are my eyes playing tricks on me? Gao Yang, pinch me and see if it's real." Gao Yang wasn't there. He had gone to invite Gao Zhan. After Gao Zhan arrived, he took Shen Miao's pulse and after feeling her pulse, he clicked his tongue in wonder. The Empress pulse is stable and there is no problem. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Not long after Xie Jingxing ascended the throne, everyone of the Shen family also arrived at the Great Liang and after knowing that Shen Miao had not woken up for a long time, they were unable to accept it. He insisted on bringing Shen Miao to search the world and also thought that it was impossible for Xie Jingxing to let an unconscious person be the Empress. Even if she was the Empress, in the future people's hearts would change easily and he might take in another female in the inner palace, thus Shen Xian must bring Shen Miao away. But Xie Jingxing was not willing no matter what and even knelt down to beg Shen Xian. At the end he even used the Mou army to threaten Shen Xian and almost fought with Shen Xian. It was still Luo Tan and Luo Shuiyan who came to persuade him. They mentioned the 1st and 15th day of the month. Shen Xian had no other way but he was afraid that someone would take advantage of Shen Miao not waking up and cause her to be wronged. He might as well hand the Shen family's and Luo family's army over to Luo Ling's side to manage, and his entire family would be stationed in the palace for a long time. He looked after Shen Miao to prevent any accidents. This was actually somewhat against etiquette, but Xie Jingxing was happy to see it happen, as it was good to have someone accompany Shen Miao to talk. And in this half a year, Shen Xian's family also saw with their own eyes that Xie Jingxing treated Shen Miao the same as before, and at the same time, they gradually felt at ease. Speaking of these, Shen Miao's heart was filled with mixed feelings. He never thought that he would be able to see his family the moment he woke up. Everyone was safe and sound, and everything was peaceful. This was already an unimaginable joy for her. Sister-in-law. Ji Yushu said, now that you are awake, those officials would not dare to talk nonsense all day. You don't know, but in this half a year, Long Ye's officials have been miserably dealt with by imperial cousin brother. Xie Jingxing looked at him slowly, you talk too much. Ji Yushu quickly kept quiet. Ever since Shen Miao fell into a deep sleep, other than the Shen family and the two treasures, Xie Jingxing did not have any patience for anyone, not to mention making jokes. His technique of setting people up was getting better and better. Naturally, they did not dare to provoke him. If you're done, I'll go back. Xie Jingxing coldly looked at the chattering of the crowd. It is late today. Do not disturb Zhen's Empress rest. He put a lot of emphasis on my Empress. When Shen Qiu saw the situation, he wanted to roll up his sleeves and fight with Xie Jingxing. In this half a year, both of them would often fight behind. It was said to be exchanging pointers, but it was actually to vent each other's dissatisfaction. Shen Qiu was indignant in his heart. Shen Miao was unable to wake up because of Xie Jingxing. How good would it be if she did not follow Xie Jingxing in the beginning? Xie Jingxing was angry that Shen Qiu was meddling in other people's business. Why did his own daughter-in-law need an outsider to manage, not even his eldest brother? Now that Shen Miao returned and Xie Jingxing declared his sovereignty, Shen Qiu's heart was unhappy. But he heard Luo Shuiyan saying, that is also right. Jiao Jiao has just woken up and we have asked so many questions at once, it is inevitable that she will feel dizzy. It is better to let her rest for a while. Anyway, the days are long, so we can slowly talk. Chapter 1139. Shen Miao actually wanted to hear everyone talk about the things that happened in this half a year, but after thinking about it, it would be better to speak slowly since there was still time. Everyone discussed and dispersed and Shen Miao returned to her bedroom. She first went to wash up and Jingjie and the rest helped her bathe. As they were serving, they were wiping their tears and said with teary eyes, "Fu, your ladyship is finally awake." These servants were previously thinking that it would be great if there was a day that we could serve your ladyship to bathe once more. One did not know if the heavens would be willing to give this opportunity. One did not think that the heavens really have the virtue of cherishing life and was willing to give these servants another chance. Your ladyship, in the future these servants will serve you like this every day. Shen Miao did not know that after bathing, these maids would actually cry so much that she did not know whether to laugh or cry. She then used gentle and soft words to coax these maids. She knew in her heart that she had been asleep for half a year and most of it was because these maids were scared. After wiping her body and drying her hair, Shen Miao put on her clothes and went out to let the wet nurse bring year 1 and 15 over. The two children were carried to the bed. In the past, they were often carried by Xie Jingxing to get close to Shen Miao, so even though Shen Miao had never woken up, the two children were not at all unfamiliar with her scent. They looked at her with a smile and curiously stretched out their soft little hands to grab her hair. Shen Miao's heart was about to be splashed by the two children. She stretched out her fingers to tease the children. Because they were twins and were equally lively, the wet nurse would not be able to differentiate them, so she gave them different clothes. Year 1 wore a blue gown and 15 wore a red gown. Year 1 hugged Shen Miao's fingers and started giggling. Shen Miao burst out laughing. Xie Jingxing just returned from outside and saw Shen Miao lying on the bed and laughing happily with the two little fellows. He walked over and said in disdain, "After sleeping for half a year, have you become stupid? Laughing like a fool. I am looking at my son." Shen Miao rolled her eyes at him. "What does it have to do with you? That is also my son." Xie Jingxing raised his brows. "Without me, how would you give birth?" Shen Miao was too lazy to bother with him and continued to play happily on the 1st and 15th days of the year. Xie Jingxing took off his outer robe but walked over and went around to her back. He reached out to hold her waist and pulled her into his embrace. "Two silly little brats, there is nothing to see. Didn't you name them?" Shen Miao complained. "Did you randomly pick them?" "Who said that I randomly picked it?" Xie Jingxing said, "Leave the name for you to pick when you wake up. Aren't you afraid that I'll never wake up?" Xie Jingxing lazily said, "Then they will be called Xie Chu and Xie 15. Shen Miao, the two little guys on the bed didn't know if they understood Xie Jingxing's words, but they protested with a y sound. Shen Miao quickly reached out to coax him but was pulled back into his embrace by Xie Jingxing. He said, "Not seeing for half a year, you do not miss me and are so cold." Shen Miao paused for a moment and suddenly turned her head back. She broke free from Xie Jingxing's embrace and stood properly. She crossed her arms at her chest and stared at Xie Jingxing with a smile that was not a smile. Xie Jingxing suddenly felt that his back was somewhat numb. She said, "Little Xie Marquis, do you know what you have done?" Xie Jingxing was inexplicable. "Done what?" Shen Miao smiled coldly. The flowers in the summer were good, the saucers were playing with bees and there was the fragrance of flowers everywhere. The streets were filled with people and horses galloped past. The hawkers' lively cries spread from the east to the west of the city and everywhere was jubilant. Chapter 1140. Shen Miao was wearing a yellow long-sleeved robe and there were hundreds of flowers embroidered on it. This robe was originally brightly colored and with the addition of the complicated embroidery, it looked jumbled. In addition to her head full of gold and silver ornaments and heavy makeup, she looked exceptionally stupid. The surrounding people would occasionally pass by and look at her with an expression of watching a joke. Shen Miao's gaze was somewhat at a loss. She was clearly in the Great Liang's imperial palace a moment ago and was on the verge of death due to giving birth, thinking that she had died. But in the next moment, she was on this bustling street. She was not unfamiliar with this street as this was Ming Qi's Ding capital. What was going on? Long Yi would definitely not be able to reach the Ding capital in a blink of an eye. Could it be that she was dreaming? But Shen Miao knew that it was not so. Jingjie and Guyu followed behind and the two maids had a careful look. Shen Miao looked at the clothes on her body. She seemed to have returned to a long time ago, so long that she just started to be infatuated with Fu Xiu-yi. Could it be that his previous reincarnation was the real dream? Just a golden millet dream, which was real? Which was the dream? Shen Miao felt somewhat dizzy and reached out to hold her forehead. Guyu jumped in shock when she saw it. Is young lady uncomfortable anywhere? Shen Miao shook her head and just as she was about to speak, she saw a familiar person walking past the corner of the street. That person was wearing tattered clothes and was holding a horsetail whisk as he shook his head. One did not know what was in his mouth as he was mumbling. But Shen Miao's eyes brightened and did not bother to speak as she ran over to that person's side. Jingjie and Guyu were unable to stop her and could only follow as they watched Shen Miao walk over to that person. Taoist priest Qi Yan. Shen Miao shouted. That strange Taoist priest turned his head over with a grin. It was indeed Taoist priest Qi Yan. When Taoist priest Qi Yan saw her, he had a very surprised look as he asked, "Foreign, why are you here?" Shen Miao noticed that he said foreign and not young lady. Jingzhe angrily said, "Who are you calling foreign? Do not randomly shout. Our family's young lady is not married yet." But Shen Miao stopped Jingzhe's words and said to Taoist priest Qi Yan, "Taoist priest, let's step aside to talk." "Young lady." Jingzhe and Guyu anxiously stamped their feet. Shen Miao frowned, "Listen to me." The look in her eyes became fierce. The two maids were stunned and didn't dare to answer. Shen Miao and Taoist priest Qi Yan walked to a dilapidated temple while Jingzhe and Guyu stood guard outside. Shen Miao looked at Taoist master Qi Yan and hesitated for a moment before asking, "Taoist master, you know me, right? I've met Madam 3 times. The Taoist priest gestured 3 times. Once in his previous life, and twice in his reincarnation. That made it 3 times. Shen Miao hurriedly asked, "Taoist priest, do you know what is going on? How did I get here?" Without rhyme or reason, it was clear that her fate was nearing, so why would she return to Ming Qi's Ding capital and return to the beginning? Could it be that everything that happened with Xie Jingxing, even the matter of having a child in Great Liang, was all a pipe dream? If it's a dream, then isn't it a little too realistic? Madam's fate is very peculiar. The Taoist priest said, although there is a chance to start over, the fate has been disturbed, hence the calamity of life. Although he had resolved the previous tribulation, this was the final tribulation. It has nothing to do with others. You can only rely on yourself. Shen Miao frowned. What does Taoist priest's words mean? In the previous life, someone sought a chance for you to start over again. However, there are thousands of possibilities in the world. You and the person who came back to life know each other and fall in love, and there is also the possibility of knowing each other and falling in love with another person. Madam, you have 2 choices. Chapter 1141. Shen Miao clenched her fists. What choice? Currently foreign's that body is most likely in a deep sleep. You can choose to stay in this dream and look for another possibility. From now on, start everything over and choose another life. However, that body will sleep for a long time. What is the other possibility? Shen Miao asked. You go and find that man in your life and let this man in the dream believe you. Bring him back to the Great Liang Palace. The moment you step into the Great Liang Palace, that body will wake up. Shen Miao was stunned. But this is very difficult. The Taoist priest stroked his beard. Now that this man is a stranger to you, it is very difficult to convince him to go to the Great Liang with you. Shen Miao's head hurt. This is not possible. Xie Jingxing's character was sharp, suspicious, and would not easily believe others. Even after Shen Miao was reborn, she was in a deadlock with Xie Jingxing for a long time. Now, Shen Miao looked at her current outfit. It would be strange if Xie Jingxing could believe her. Foreign, the words are as such. The strange Taoist priest said, naturally foreign can also stay in this dream. This dream is no different from reality. Foreign can stay here to complete one's life and start anew. It is much simpler. If one were to choose the second path, it would be difficult. Shen Miao lowered her head and said after a long while, Taoist priests still have red ropes. How about gifting me too? Qi Yan Taoist priest was startled and sized Shen Miao up for a while like he did not recognize her before suddenly smiling. Does foreign still want to choose that path? Naturally I can live like that. It is also not bad to live here. Shen Miao gently smiled, but even if there are thousands of people in the world, I am not willing if there is one out of thousands of him who is sad because of me. He does not recognize me, so I will go and get to know him first. If the mountain does not come to me, I will come to the mountain. Taoist priest gift me a fate, and if the fate is gone, then I will go and find it myself. She said. Chi Yen Taoist priest said, infatuation is born from love. Since that is the case, this Taoist priest will gift you another fate. He took out 2 red ropes from his bosom. Furen, wish you success. Shen Miao bowed and turned to leave. Jingzhe and Guyu felt somewhat strange these days. Firstly, it was because Shen Miao had changed her previous temperament of wearing gold and silver and changed to wear more mature colors even though it looked good. Secondly, he was no longer as obedient to the second and third branches as before. Most of the time, he was even disdainful of them. Thirdly, in the past few days, he had secretly sent people to inquire about Prince Ding's news, but these days there was no mention of such a person, as if he did not remember such a person. Finally, he had been wandering the streets a lot lately. Shen Miao had a bigger headache than Jingzhe and Guyu. Xie Jingxing was someone who liked to wander around. Today he would go to the brothel and tomorrow he would go to the banquet, even though he knew that this was all his disguise. But Shen Miao's current mentality was different. Seeing Xie Jingxing attracting bees and butterflies, she could not wait to kick him twice. But because he wanted to inquire about Xie Jingxing's whereabouts, he could only secretly follow. In this half a month, there was actually no repetition every day, almost going around the entire Ding capital. On this evening, Shen Miao let Jingzhe and Guyu wait at the other side while she personally went to the entrance of the residence of the Marquis of Linan to wait. She was dressed up as a male and had a clean and neat style. Moreover, the people of the Ding capital knew that she was an idiot who wore gold and silver. Naturally, one would not link the 5th young lady of the Shen family with her. From afar, one could see Xie Jingxing riding a horseback. Chapter 1142. Beside him were Gao Yang and Ji Yushu. He was indeed worthy to be an idle gentleman who visited brothels all day, as he could tell that she was a female dressed as a male with one glance. Ji Yushu even whistled and said with a smile, "Third older brother, another beauty is here." Shen Miao, Xie Jingxing got off the horse and swept a glance at her. He did not know what it meant and was about to walk towards the door. Shen Miao pulled him back. "Little Xie Marquis." Xie Jingxing stopped his footsteps. "Let's talk," she said. In the room, Xie Jingxing poured a cup of tea for her and lazily stared at her. "Shen Miao, 5th Shen young lady, after following me for half a month, could it be that you are really infatuated with me?" His words were frivolous, but his eyes were as sharp as usual. He had long investigated her identity clearly, but he had played it down and didn't say anything. Shen Miao had a headache. To let that her in Great Liang wake up earlier, she must quickly bring this Xie Jingxing to Longyi so that she would wake up from the dream. But in this dream, Xie Jingxing was still so mischievous and suspicious. What should she say? Say that she was Xie Jingxing's wife, and also gave birth to 2 children for him. Would Xie Jingxing think that she had lost her mind? She said, "Little Xie Marquis, can you accompany me to Great Liang?" Before her voice landed, a strong wind came, and before Shen Miao could react, her throat was grabbed by someone. His voice was cold and there was a hidden killing intent. "What do you know?" Shen Miao almost could not breathe. She knew that it was like this. With Xie Jingxing's overbearing temperament, no matter what she said, he would not listen. Even if she wanted to explain, it was not possible. Seeing that she was gasping for breath and seemed to have no martial arts, Xie Jingxing then slightly loosened his grip. Shen Miao was angry and anxious as she said angrily, "Scoundrel." Xie Jingxing's gaze turned cold. "You have big guts." "Scoundrel." "Lecher." "Shameless." "Burning the bridge after crossing the river." "Cruel and unscrupulous." She did not stop scolding. Xie Jingxing was stunned and unconsciously let go of his hands. After a moment he laughed. Fifth Shen young lady, I do not seem to have offended you. Shen Miao covered her neck and said, bring me to Great Liang. Xie Jingxing was about to flare up again when he heard Shen Miao saying, bring me to Great Liang and I will tell you what I know. Xie Jingxing crossed his arms and looked at her coldly before smiling, apologies, I am not interested in what you know. He sat down in front of the table and leisurely drank his tea, but today I will spare your life. If I discover that you have other plans. Fifth Shen young lady also know that I am not a good person. Shen Miao was slightly startled. I'm not a good person. This was what Xie Jingxing had told her before. Fifth Shen young lady is still not leaving. You want to spend the night in my marquee fu? He said with a smile that was not a smile, I have no problem. Shen Miao said, shameless, and stormed off. After Shen Miao left, Xie Jingxing's face turned cold as he said, Tai Yi. A black-clothed man appeared in the room. Check it out. The Shen family, Shen Miao, he said. The man in black accepted the order and left. It was very difficult for Shen Miao to chase after Xie Jingxing. No matter if it was the Xie Jingxing in reality or the Xie Jingxing in the dream, he was all the same and often made Shen Miao clench her teeth in anger. Especially in the dream. Now in this dream, Shen Miao was just a stranger to Xie Jingxing. Before that, she was notorious, stupid and even liked Fu Xiu Yi. If now her image was changed, one would feel that she was not as described by outsiders and would only think that she was scheming, might even know his real identity and was plotting something. Chapter 1143. Xie Jingxing was wary of her and it was not easy to get close to her. Shen Miao could only go out every day to secretly follow him and find ways to speak one or two sentences to him. Xie Jingxing also knew that she was following but pretended not to know. It was Gao Yang and Ji Yu Shu who knew about this matter would tease her with a few meaningful words. The third day of the 7th month was Xie Jingxing's birthday. Shen Miao naturally knew that the current little marquis of the residence of the Marquis of Lin and did not have this birthday. But the birthday of the Great Liang's Prince Rui was this. She felt that previously in the real world, on Xie Jingxing's birthday, she was angry because of Mei Furen and Xie Jingxing. Afterwards she was not angry but because of the assassin, she made Xie Jingxing fearful. Thinking that since it was so, why not take advantage of her dreams and give Xie Jingxing a birthday in her dreams? She left early and went to Misty Rain Pavilion to book a banquet table. She had a lot of gold and silver jewelry but they were all pawned. A banquet table in Misty Rain Pavilion was worth more than 1,000 gold. Jingzhe and Gu Yu were so anxious that their eyes almost turned red but Shen Miao did not listen. It was only a dream. In reality, gold and silver were mere worldly possessions, not to mention in a dream. She was thinking that in the evening, she would drag Xie Jingxing over. Perhaps they could have a good talk at the banquet table and discuss about the Great Liang's matters. The entanglement was too complicated and even if she explained it, Xie Jingxing would not understand. Perhaps he would think that she was talking nonsense so she had to ponder over it properly. She followed Xie Jingxing to 1,000 Gold Pavilion. Xie Jingxing was drinking with a few noble juniors in the Ding capital but saw Qin Qing. The daughter of the left imperial censor, Qin Qing, had done the painting together with Shen Miao during the academy examinations. Qin Qing was born beautiful and was wearing a green cotton embroidered robe with wide sleeves. There was a yellow belt on her waist which made her slender waist less than a grasp and the fluttering of her clothes made her look like a fairy. Qin Qing had always been arrogant because of her beauty and ordinary people would not look at her but at the moment she was sitting with her eldest brother, her eyes unconsciously drifted towards Xie Jingxing. Where was the usual arrogance, it was filled with tenderness and sweetness. Only a fool would not be able to see that Qin Qing was interested in Xie Jingxing. Brother Qin also had the intention to pull the strings, so he deliberately moved aside to let Qin Qing and Xie Jingxing sit together. Shen Miao looked from the other side and did not know what Qin Qing and Xie Jingxing were talking about. Xie Jingxing smiled flirtatiously and Qin Qing shyly nodded her head. Looking from afar, they were really a pair of lovers. Shen Miao's eyes were somewhat sour. She knew that this was a dream and also knew that Xie Jingxing did not know her now and did not like her. He could play with other people and it was not something she could control. But she was sad, thinking that in the real world of the Great Liang, would Xie Jingxing be accompanied by beauties in the future, with fragrant clothes and silhouettes on his temples. Among the thousands of possibilities, he could not choose himself every single time. She closed her eyes, feeling that the scene of people toasting each other was very irritating. She couldn't bear to watch it anymore, so she stood up and left the table. Walking and walking, he eventually arrived at the Misty Rain Pavilion. The banquet in the Misty Rain Pavilion was the best banquet and the location was also good as it was at the highest level. Looking from the window, one could see the fireworks and the moon. Shen Miao went in alone. In the huge banquet, she was the only one sitting empty. The exquisite dishes filled the table and looked gorgeous, but it could not conceal the loneliness. She poured a cup of wine for herself. The wine was good wine. It was a thick osmanthus wine, sweet and had a lingering aftertaste. She drank slowly and every time she drank a cup, she would look at the moon. The moon in the dream was really beautiful, but in the real world, who was Xie Jingxing accompanying to look at the moon? Chapter 1144. She drank so much that her head was dizzy. She drank so much that she did not even hear the footsteps behind her. She heard a mocking voice coming from behind her. Wow, the Shen family is indeed a big family. Fifth Shen young lady is eating alone and still has to arrange such a banquet in Misty Rain Pavilion. Shen Miao turned back to look and Xie Jingxing had a smile on his lips as he walked in unhurriedly. She frowned. Xie Jingxing's eyes swept across the empty wine pots on the table. One pot after another, all over the place, and teased, Fifth Shen young lady's mood is not good after drinking so much. Shen Miao stared straight at him. Xie Jingxing leaned over slightly and his line of sight was level with Shen Miao. When he saw her slightly red eyes, he was slightly startled before saying, "Could it be because of me?" Shen Miao still did not speak. Xie Jingxing pondered, because of Qin Qing. Before he finished speaking, Shen Miao suddenly threw herself into his embrace. Her hands tightly hugged Xie Jingxing's waist and her face was buried in his chest. It was clearly a familiar body, so why did he use such a strange tone to talk to her? She sobbed and scolded, "Shameless. Do you want to separate from me? In the beginning when he married me, he clearly said that he would not have another woman in the future and that he would only be a couple for a lifetime. Xie Jingxing is a liar. You tricked me into entering the family, and now you're attracting bees and butterflies. My big brother and father will definitely beat you up. Bastard, bastard, bastard." Xie Jingxing was frightened and said, "When did I say that?" But Shen Miao hugged him and cried so sadly that Xie Jingxing swallowed the rest of his words. The girl in his arms was crying and her body was twitching. It could be seen that she was really angry. Her hands were tightly wrapped around his waist like a child, unwilling to let go even if she died. Xie Jingxing hesitated for a moment before he stretched out his hand, wanting to pat the girl's shoulder lightly. She was the fifth miss of the Shen family. Everyone knew that she was a stupid idiot. The Shen family had nothing to do with her and she did not care about them. Who knew that one day he was targeted by Shen Miao and she always had a good relationship with him? Xie Jingxing was inexplicable and became even more suspicious because Shen Miao seemed to know the secret of his great liang. However, he couldn't seem to be cruel to her no matter what. She heard Tiayi say that she was drunk in the Misty Rain Pavilion, yet she still followed him. Xie Jingxing frowned as he stared at the person in his embrace. The delicate body in his embrace was warm and it seemed that even his heart was warmed up a little. But he felt a little strange, as if this posture was somewhat familiar, as if he had done this before. Where did he do it? In a dream. He hesitated and said uncertainly, Shen Miao, have I hugged you like this before? The sobbing in his arms stopped abruptly. Shen Miao raised her head from his embrace and stared at him. Under the moonlight, her eyes were red and swollen, but her eyes were bright. It was as if a new hope had appeared in the midst of despair. It was very moving. She tiptoed and pulled Xie Jingxing's collar, pulling him closer and kissing him fiercely. You kissed me like that, she said. What happened afterwards was that Shen Miao pestered Xie Jingxing till he had no choice and finally agreed to bring her to the Great Liang. Perhaps in that dream, when Xie Jingxing and Shen Miao woke up, they were gone and most likely the commoners of Mingqi thought that they had eloped. But so what, when they reached the imperial palace of the Great Liang, they would wake up from the dream. In that journey of nearly half a year, Shen Miao also told her own matters to Xie Jingxing in the dream. She did not know if Xie Jingxing would believe it or not. After Xie Jingxing heard it, he did not say anything, but one night, he said it to Shen Miao. He said, what that Taoist priest said is wrong. Shen Miao was puzzled, what? Among thousands of possibilities, I will only choose you. His lips hooked up into a smile and tied the red string on Shen Miao's hand to himself. Hurry on with the journey. Do not let me in reality wait for too long. Shen Jiao. Xie Jingxing was dumbstruck as he listened. Shen Miao cast a sidelong glance at him. In that dream, you attracted bees and butterflies and went to brothels every day and bullied me. You did not believe anything that I said to you and suspected me and pinched my neck. Xie Jingxing, do you know what you have done? Her accusatory tone made Xie Jingxing speechless. After a long while he said, that is the me in the dream and not me. The one in the dream is also you. Shen Miao said angrily. Xie Jingxing quickly hugged her and stroked her hair. The me in the dream also believed you at the end and brought you back to the Great Liang. It can be seen that I only have you in my heart. He touched his chin and said unhappily, but that brat is really lucky that you actually took the initiative to kiss him. Shen Miao, only Xie Jingxing could eat one's own vinegar under the heavens. Since that is the case, I must apologize to Furen. Xie Jingxing said seriously and suddenly carried Shen Miao. Deserting Furen deserves to die. Today Furen can do whatever you want. Hey, it is the 1st and 15th day of the new year, let the wet nurse watch. Xie Jingxing carried her and turned to walk out, but his lips could not help but rise. Even though the person in the dream was very hateful, there was one thing that was not wrong. Shen Miao looked at him. What is it? Among thousands of possibilities, I will only choose you and only you. He said. Chapter 1145. Luo Tan was not in a good mood recently. Everyone in the Luo family had moved to Longyi and it could be considered that they had settled down here. After Shen Miao became the Empress, she was not as idle as before. She had to take care of the 1st and 15th days of the month and also manage the inner palace properly, even though it was very puzzling in Luo Tan's eyes. After all, there was only Shen Miao alone in the inner palace of the Great Liang, so what was there to manage? But Shen Miao was indeed busy and Luo Tan felt somewhat bored. But she had always had a restless temperament and simply went out to play all day, to find entertainment for herself. This time the Luo family's second household couple were somewhat dissatisfied. Madame Ma said all day, you are not young anymore and Ren Zhao's son is already over 1 year old. Others do not care about you being an old young lady, but you are still so rash all day long. How can that be? Luo Tan was extremely vexed. She felt that it was good to be alone. She could eat, drink and play by herself, but after getting married, it would be troublesome as she had to manage this and that and also manage her husband's heart. If her husband was a good one and did not bring in a mess of females into the inner courtyard, then she would want to spread the branches and leaves earlier. After giving birth, she would have to personally take care of the children. A female's youth was so short that how could it be wasted on such trivial matters? It would be better to take advantage of one's good years to go out and visit famous mountains and great rivers. That would be meaningful. In fact, the Luo family was not an old-fashioned family and would not worry about marrying off their daughter at such a young age. It was just that parents would always hope that their child would have a good home to return to as soon as possible, and Luo Tan was always carefree. Living till this age, it seemed that she had never liked anyone before. If one were to talk about liking, it would be casually seen on the streets. This kind of liking was no different from liking flowers and plants. One did not know how long it would take for Luo Tan to be enlightened on matters of love. Madame Ma asked, "Tanner, tell mother honestly. Do you really not have a man that you like?" Luo Tan was impatient from being questioned and said, "Mother, where did I find a man that I like? Now even Qian'er has a young lady that he likes and Qian'er is younger than you." When Madame Ma heard this, she became depressed and used Luo Qian as an example. "There are so many good men in this world, why can't I see any that I like?" Luo Tan curled her lips. "There are many of them, but I haven't seen many." "This cannot go on," Madame Ma slapped the table. "I cannot let you continue to fool around like this. Now that Zhao Zhao is the Empress, she must know a few young talents in this world. I have to ask her to help me look for one. You go and take a good look for me." Luo Tan looked at her incredulously. "Mother, are you serious? It's not like I can't get married. It is not that you cannot get married. You simply do not understand." Madame Ma said, "You must go. If you do not go, how can I let you go out?" Finishing, she did not wait for Luo Tan to answer and got up to leave. Madame Ma let Luo Shuiyan accompany her to the palace to talk about this matter with Shen Miao. Even though Shen Miao was now an empress, she did not change her temperament and was as gentle as before in front of relatives. The Luo family and the Shen family still got along with her like before, and there was no change. When Madame Ma mentioned Luo Tan, she felt a headache and asked Shen Miao, "Zhao Zhao, you usually come in contact with many noble people. Can you help Tanner to look for a few? One does not need the family background, the most important thing is the character, and one must have a good character. Tanner is pure and does not know the twists and turns of the residence. It is best that the family is clean and simple, and do not have any messy relatives. It is best to have a handsome appearance." Madame Ma was somewhat blushing. Tanner likes good-looking things. If one is good-looking, most likely she would like it. Chapter 1146. Shen Miao was astonished and looked at Luo Shuiyan. Luo Shuiyan also said, "Yes. Zhao Zhao, it is better for you to take a look at Tanner. Naturally there is no problem, but..." Shen Miao asked hesitantly, "Does Biao older sister really have no one in her heart? With her temperament, it is impossible to wait for her to take the initiative to open her apertures." Madame Ma waved her hands and had an appearance of not wanting to mention it again. "If Tanner is half of Zhao Zhao's knowledge, I would not need to be so worried." Since they were all sisters, Shen Miao was able to discern heroes, and at a young age, she was able to marry Xie Jingxing, a rare peerless male in the world, which became a much-told story. After marriage, Xie Jingxing was also tightly controlled, and other than the Empress, there were no other women in the inner palace of a monarch. How many women in the world were envious, but Shen Miao could not. Moreover, Xie Jingxing's conditions were so good. Looking at Luo Tan, after living for so many years, not to mention taking down a peerless male, she did not even have any signs of an ordinary male. Originally Madame Ma and Luo Lian Tai were thinking that when their daughter grew up, there would be so many marriage proposals that the doorsill would be broken. If one family had a daughter, then hundreds of families would seek for it, and how lively it would be. At the end it was so quiet that not even a mosquito could be seen. Needless to say how sullen it was. Did Biao older sister Tan herself agree to take a look? Shen Miao asked. She dare not agree. Madame Ma said again, Jiao Jiao, you have a good relationship with her, so will trouble you to persuade her when you are free. What is the matter with a young lady visiting the brothel all day long? She is very clear about the gambling houses in Longyi. It is really a misfortune for the family. Luo Tan had such a lively temperament and disregarded the rules and etiquette. She lived freely, but it was easy to be criticized. Shen Miao replied straightforwardly, all right. Then I will start to help Biao older sister to take note. It is just that Biao older sister must like it or not. Then many thanks Jiao Jiao. Madame Ma was overjoyed. At night, Shen Miao held a long scroll in her hands and looked through it one by one until late at night and still did not sleep. When Xie Jingxing returned to the bedroom after dealing with the reports, he saw that she was still waiting to read and asked, Did you sleep first? There are some things that have not been read. Shen Miao did not even lift her head as her eyes continued to be glued to the scroll. Xie Jingxing walked over to take a look and saw that on the scroll, there was a small portrait of a man on every page. Beside the portrait was the man's name, family background, official position, and even hobbies and specialties. Xie Jingxing closed the scroll and asked, What are you looking at this for? Get up and move. Shen Miao took the scroll back from his hands. Yunmu, let me find some reliable people for Tan Biao older sister. Do not interrupt. Luo Tan. Xie Jingxing raised his eyebrows. She is going to marry. And worries a lot. It's just a matter of convenience. Shen Miao suddenly thought of something and looked at Xie Jingxing. Speaking of which, what is Gao Yang's intention? What do you mean? Xie Jingxing was confused. That's right, cousin Tan. Shen Miao looked at him. I see that he likes Tan Biao older sister, but it does not seem to explain anything. If one were to wait for Tan Biao older sister to understand, one fear that it would not happen in this lifetime. Tan Biao older sister does not understand. Gao Yang is an astute person. What is the meaning of him dragging it like this? Xie Jingxing frowned and pondered. Does Gao Yang like Luo Tan? Shen Miao used her elbow to poke him. Are you blind? How would I know what Gao Yang is thinking? Xie Jingxing felt wronged. He grasped his own matters clearly and logically but was extremely slow when it came to his good friend's marriage. Shen Miao could see that Xie Jingxing did not know how to read the situation, so she was too lazy to ask him. Chapter 1147. But Xie Jingxing opened his mouth at this time and said, Gao Yang is an intelligent person, but intelligence is easily misled by intelligence. Shen Miao immediately understood his meaning. She turned her head back and looked at Xie Jingxing. You are saying that Gao Yang knew his own thoughts and deliberately did not say it, waiting for Biao older sister to speak. Not everyone is like your husband who is able to bend and stretch as needed. Xie Jingxing's lips hooked up. Ha! Shen Miao glanced at him. Why do you not say that not everyone is as shameless as you? Xie Jingxing's face turned green and heard Shen Miao speaking again. But you are right. Cleverness can be misled by cleverness. With Gao Yang's temperament of grasping everything in the palm of his hands, one fear that he is wrong to wait for Biao older sister to understand. Xie Jingxing said thoughtfully, "What do you want to do?" Shen Miao stared at him, of course to help Biao's older sister. She then fiercely leaned towards Xie Jingxing and threatened, "Do not tell Gao Yang." Gao Yang was Xie Jingxing's people, so Xie Jingxing would occasionally give a few words of advice. Xie Jingxing grabbed her hands and smiled ambiguously, "That would depend on Furen's performance tonight." Shen Miao did what she said and indeed found a booklet on the second day. There were 3 names on it and Luo Shuiyan sent it to the Luo residence. Madame Ma was so grateful that she wanted to personally come to the palace to thank Shen Miao but was comforted by Luo Shuiyan, "One do not know if Tanner would like it or not. Wait till it is done before saying." Madame Ma could trust the people that Shen Miao picked. This time she also let Luo Sui and Luo Lian Tai take a look and both of them nodded their heads repeatedly. Luo Lian Tai had entered the Great Liang's official position and had some understanding of the various officials. The 3 people that Shen Miao picked were all young talents that were ranked in the top. Moreover, their family background was good and their background was clean. The most important thing was that their character was absolutely upright. Luo Tan thought that Madame Ma was only saying it. Even if Madame Ma had such intentions, Shen Miao would definitely be on her side and would definitely not let her take a look at these people. She did not expect that Shen Miao not only followed Madame Ma to mess around, but also sent the booklet. Luo Tan was so angry that she sat in the room and lamented repeatedly in front of the mirror that youngest Biao did not love her. Although she was unwilling, Luo Tan still wanted to meet these 3 young masters. Because Luo Lian Tai cut off Luo Tan's money and didn't allow Luo Tan to go out, if she didn't listen, who knew how long she would be locked up. Madame Ma cried again in front of Luo Tan. Luo Tan was a person who could be persuaded by reason but not cowed by force. She felt that it was unfilial of her to make things difficult for Madame Ma, so she agreed to see the 3 people. The first one was the son of the Grand Secretary of the Cabinet. He was well-read and gentle, but when he spoke, it made Luo Tan want to doze off. She dozed off the whole afternoon. Later, she would tell Madame Ma that if she lived with this person, thinking about how boring it would be, she would definitely have an affair. Madame Ma was so frightened that she immediately arranged for the second young master. The second young master was a former deputy general. He was still young, but after a few more years, he would definitely have a better future. It was just that this young deputy general was very mature. Even though he was handsome, it made one feel fear. Luo Tan said that if she were to marry this person, she would be worried that she would be hacked to death by the person sleeping next to her at night as his killing intent was too strong. Madame Ma thought about it. Indeed, females were all delicate. Even though Luo Tan was usually carefree, but if she was with a military general, if there was any friction, that person's temper would be hard and would not be willing to give in, and if they quarrel, wouldn't there be chaos? She then rejected the second person in her heart. On the 3rd day, the last person was finally welcomed. This was the middle minister's family's young master He. Young master He was 20 this year and was still considered young. Even though his family was a civil official, he also practiced martial arts. He could be considered a talent with both civil and military skills. Chapter 1148. The moment he saw Luo Tan, he praised the small saber at Luo Tan's waist. It was a small saber that Luo Tan had spent a lot of money to buy. It looked unremarkable, but it was a precious saber that could cut through iron like mud. Normal people didn't know what was good, but this young master could tell that it was a good saber with one look. Luo Tan was very happy. Looking at this young master's handsome features and presence, Luo Tan, as a person who liked good-looking things, was especially willing to talk more with him. Now that she said it, she realized that this young master was a talent. Not only did he know a lot, he had been to many places. When he talked about the strange things that happened in those places, Luo Tan listened intently. Even though he was knowledgeable, he never showed off and didn't use those cryptic words. Instead, he changed to a way that Luo Tan could understand and spoke tirelessly. It was very interesting to listen to him talk. Unknowingly, the two talked until the sky turned dark. This day was more joyful than he had imagined. Young master, he seemed to be very satisfied with Luo Tan, and the two agreed to go out to play tomorrow. Returning to the Fu, Madame Ma asked Luo Tan, what do you think of this young master? Luo Tan said, not bad. As a friend, he is very qualified. Madame Ma and Luo Liantai almost cried tears of joy. Luo Tan looked at people based on her preferences. To be able to be her friend. She had almost succeeded. Listening to Luo Tan's servant girl talk about how the two of them were chatting happily, Madame Ma finally put down most of her worries. That night, when Madame Ma and Luo Liantai were talking, she said, should we go to the He Fu and greet them? I sent an invitation to He Furen, let's sit together another day. What's the rush? Luo Liantai said, nothing has been set in stone yet. That's true. Madame Ma sighed, I don't worry about Qian what I worry about is Tan marriage. Speaking of which, I thought that Dr. Gao was not bad. He looked like he liked Tan but afterwards, he didn't say anything. I think I misunderstood him. Madame Ma liked Gao Yang. He was handsome and did not have a complicated family. If Luo Tan married over, she would be the mistress of the household. She just had to manage the servants. Who knew that Gao Yang did not have that intention? Madame Ma was a person with integrity. So what if you are a genius from the great Liang's family? If you don't like my daughter, then forget it. My daughter doesn't have to worry about no one liking her. On the other side, Luo Tan rested her chin on her hand. She had not seen Gao Yang for a long time. Gao Yang had now returned to the Gao family. Although he didn't live there, he was considered to have returned to the family tree. Gao Zhan had many things to tell him. Gao Yang used to look for Luo Tan from time to time, but now he came less often. The most recent time was a month ago. Luo Tan felt. But on second thought, it was probably because he didn't have any playmates. Fortunately, the current young master, he was also very interesting and they could play together. He was also very liked by Madame Ma. Since that was the case, they could just treat it as changing the person they played with. Luo Tan didn't know that someone had seen her drinking tea with young master he in the tea house today. At this moment, Ji Yushu was feeding the parrots as he said, long time no see Luo Tan to play. Why did she not come over these days? Gao Yang was startled, what is the matter? Ji Yushu mentioned Luo Tan without rhyme or reason. Something must have happened. Today on my way back, I saw Luo Tan walking together with a male. Ji Yushu muttered, she looked rather happy. Is she going to play with others in the future? Chapter 1149. Gao Yang was stunned and asked, what did you say? The next day, Luo Tan really went to play with young master he again. She heard that young master he was very capable and had a bright future in his official career. She didn't expect him to be so good at playing. Luo Tan had thought that she had learned most of Longye City by walking the streets and alleys every day. Who knew that when young master he came out, she realized that she wasn't born and raised in Longye City. Young master he knew many small shops and restaurants that others didn't know about. It was refreshing. Luo Tan liked these new things the most. She swept away the dejection of the past few days and felt like it was her first time in Longye City. She bought many things. The two of them seemed to be the same kind of person. They loved to eat and play and were full of energy. That day, they played until the sun set before reluctantly leaving. Young master he sent Luo Tan back to the manor. Gao Yang came to the Luo manor and coincidentally saw Luo Qian walk out. He was probably going out to do something. He was no longer the spirited youth from before. He had grown a lot taller and his immature face started to show the determination of a man. However, his lively personality was still the same as before. They were indeed siblings. When he saw Gao Yang, he said, "Dr. Gao." Gao Yang, the siblings loved to call him doctor, but his identity wasn't an ordinary doctor. Moreover, he had an official position, okay? Luo Qian asked, "Dr. Gao, are you here to find my sister?" "My sister isn't here." Gao Yang was stunned and asked calmly, "Oh. It's so late, why isn't she back yet?" Luo Qian waved his hand and pretended to be old. "Hi, she went out with that young master he. She probably lost her way." Young master he. Gao Yang chewed on this name. Before he could ask anything else, he heard Luo Qian say, What did I say?" "They're back." Gao Yang followed Luo Qian's gaze and turned his head to see a handsome young master and Luo Tan walking over. The servant behind him was even carrying a pile of things. Luo Tan was very forthright as she said to him, "In the future, when I travel the world, I'll count you in. There must be a lot of fun." Young master he smiled, "It would be my honor." The corner of Gao Yang's mouth twitched. Luo Qian greeted Luo Tan, "Sister. Dr. Gao is here to see you." Only then did Luo Tan see Gao Yang. Gao Yang walked over and smiled at Luo Tan before looking at the legendary young master he. Young master he looked very handsome and refined. Just now he looked like he was chatting happily with Luo Tan. Seeing Gao Yang, he said to Luo Tan, "Since you have a guest, I won't disturb you." He then ordered his attendant to bring a small box and said, "I saw this on the way back yesterday and thought you might like it." He scratched his head in embarrassment and said, "I hope you don't mind." Luo Tan took it and said happily, "Thank you. I have always believed in your foresight." Seeing the two of them chatting happily as if no one else was around, Gao Yang felt a little sullen. After sending off young master he with great difficulty, Luo Tan asked Gao Yang, "Why did you come to find me?" Gao Yang narrowed his eyes at her and said, "Can't I come to find you if I have nothing to do?" "That's not it," said Luo Tan. "Aren't you going back to the Gao family? You have a lot of things to do." As she spoke, she opened the box young master he had given her. Inside the box, there was a bracelet. Luo Tan had never liked beads and hairpins, but this bracelet was a thin gold chain, and the pendant was a delicate knife. It was only the size of a fingernail, and it was lifelike and very cute. Luo Tan immediately began to play with it. Chapter 1150. Seeing this, Gao Yang became even more unhappy and said, "Since it's like this, you should accompany me for a walk." "Why would I?" Before Luo Tan could finish, Gao Yang grabbed her arm and pulled her out. Although she had martial arts, it was not enough in front of Gao Yang. Gao Yang usually looked like a modest gentleman, but he was not weak. Luo Tan could not struggle free and could only be brought away by Gao Yang. Luo Qian waved at the two of them from behind and said, "Come back early, sis." Gao Yang brought Luo Tan all the way to a small alley before letting go. Luo Tan's wrist was hurting from his grip and she could not help but shake her hand and complain, "Are you crazy?" Gao Yang was startled and let go. After a while, he said, "I'm very busy, but you're not free either." "Ah." Luo Tan did not understand. "Are you having fun with young master he?" Gao Yang sized her up, his tone was a little strange, "We've only known each other for a few days and you're already using always. Are you very familiar with him? Do you trust him?" Gao Yang was behaving extremely strangely today. Luo Tan couldn't figure it out and subconsciously replied, "Are you sick? Do I need to tell you who I'm familiar with? What's wrong with you today? Did you take the wrong medicine? Did your grandfather scold you?" Gao Yang took a deep breath and said, "If I didn't come to find you, would you have gone out with someone else to play?" Luo Tan was confused by Gao Yang's tone today. She was not a patient person and said, "You're too overbearing. If you didn't come to find me, I would naturally go find someone else to play with. Otherwise, would I have suffocated to death in my room? There are so many people in the world, of course I have to make friends. Just good friends." Gao Yang leaned forward and said, "Haven't you already started to look for a future husband?" Luo Tan was startled and asked, "How do you know?" When her words fell into Gao Yang's ears, it was a tacit agreement. Gao Yang said, "Then what do you think of him?" This time, he returned to his usual gentle tone. Luo Tan saw that his expression was normal and thought that he was acting normal. She said, "Not bad, not like those scholarly people. He's not vulgar, quite interesting." Gao Yang said, "Don't meet with him again." Luo Tan was puzzled. "What's wrong with you? Why did he keep saying strange things today? Let's not even talk about the fact that my mother wanted me to meet him. But what kind of friends to make and what kind of husband to choose, that's all my business. What are you worrying about? Are you going to control me when I see other people in the future?" "Yes," Gao Yang interrupted her. Luo Tan was stunned. "I thought you would figure it out on your own. But your stupidity makes me gasp in amazement. Or perhaps, you're actually smart, and that's why you're trying to take me down on purpose." He looked pensive. Luo Tan didn't understand what he was saying and only heard Gao Yang call her stupid. She immediately exploded and said, "You're the stupid one." Not only was he stupid, but he was also being unreasonable. "I just like to play with young Master He. You won't let me see him, but I want to." How could he be so unreasonable? Before she could finish her words, Gao Yang pulled her into his embrace and kissed her on the lips. His kiss was as gentle as he was, as if he was a modest gentleman. However, amidst the gentleness, there was also a forcefulness that could not be refused. Luo Tan covered her mouth and took 2 steps back. No matter how careless she was, she knew what this meant. She had never thought deeply about her relationship with Gao Yang. From her point of view, Gao Yang was a good friend. Even though he liked to tease others and was gentle on the outside but had a belly full of bad water, he was still considered a gentleman. But how could a gentleman take advantage of her so blatantly? If it was other people, one feared that Luo Tan would have raised her knife and chopped people all over the city. At the very least, she would beat the other party up. But when she encountered Gao Yang, apart from being flustered, she actually didn't feel much anger. It was as if she was already used to such intimate actions. Yes, she was already used to it. From the Ding capital to Longyi and staying in the Gao residence, for a very long period of time, Gao Yang was definitely a gentleman to her, but he would still make some intimate actions from time to time. Those actions were very natural and Luo Tan was carefree and did not care too much about it. So much so that it was like nibbling at the mulberry leaves. It was logical to do such an outrageous thing, but it seemed normal. Luo Tan was horrified. When Gao Yang saw her like this, his expression relaxed and his tone became gentle. He said, "Do not see him in the future." Luo Tan was ashamed and resentful. "Why did you? If one cannot see this, then I would really suspect that you are so stupid that one could not pick a second in the world." Gao Yang chuckled. Luo Tan's face turned red and white and red before she suddenly said, "Could it be that you like me?" Gao Yang lightly coughed and said, "I have already done it so clearly." Luo Tan felt wronged as how would she understand? He did not come to propose marriage and did not write love poems. He was not like Xie Jingxing, who would say sweet nothings from time to time. Only a ghost would be able to see it. Gao Yang said, "At the beginning one only felt that you were fun and wanted to tease you. Afterwards one felt that you were very interesting, and when I see you being close to others, my heart would feel uncomfortable. Originally one thought that you would eventually understand if one let nature take its course. But now I understand. With your brain, if I do not say it, you would not understand in this lifetime." He took a step forward and did not give Luo Tan a chance to escape. "Do you understand?" Luo Tan was a little confused by his words and subconsciously nodded. "Oh. Then that is good." Gao Yang happily held her shoulders. "Then let us return to the residence." "Return to what residence?" Luo Tan asked. "Of course, the Luo residence." Gao Yang smiled lightly. "It is time to discuss our marriage with mother-in-law." After a moment. "Gao Yang, you are seeking death." Chapter 1151. Feng and Ning always felt that she was very afraid of Xinqiu. It was very strange to say that she was the eldest young lady of the Feng residence and was used to being picky and arrogant since young. Master Feng and the rich Furen doted on her, and all the brothers and sisters in the family gave in to her, thus she grew up into a proud character that did not care about anything. But there were two exceptions. One was Shen Miao. Feng and Ning herself did not know how she was able to play with Shen Miao. Shen Miao, who had the reputation of being stupid and boorish, unknowingly no longer did those ridiculous actions like before. Moreover, because everyone studied together in Guangwentang and sat at the same table with Shen Miao, Feng and Ning gradually felt that Shen Miao could be said to be somewhat intelligent. When one was young, one would always admire those who were more profound and unfathomable than oneself. Moreover, because of Shen Miao's previous boorishness and later dignified appearance, it was as if they were two different people, thus the difference was even more obvious. Feng and Ning involuntarily wanted to play with Shen Miao. She did not look at the other young ladies of the official families in Guangwentang, but she favored Shen Miao. Shen Miao did not flatter her nor fawn over her and treated her as if she was dispensable. On the contrary, Feng and Ning felt that Shen Miao was more real than those young ladies who often followed behind her and said pretty words. Feng and Ning felt that she was sick from listening. Not mentioning Shen Miao, the second person who would not give in to her was Xinqiu. Speaking of which, Xinqiu's reputation was extremely good, no matter if it was among the elders or juniors. Even if he had such a notorious younger sister, it did not affect his good reputation at all. Feng and Ning had seen Xinqiu once or twice before and felt that he was a handsome youth who looked as warm as the sun and was easy to talk to. But after she gradually became familiar with Shen Miao and even got close to Xinqiu a few times, she felt an inexplicable fear of Xinqiu. Firstly, Xinqiu was not as courteous to her as those noble young masters. Perhaps it was because Xinqiu had a military background and his temperament was rough and not meticulous enough. But secondly, he treated Feng and Ning like a passerby and did not look up to her just because she was Shen Miao's good friend. This was intolerable to the arrogant Feng and Ning. But every time she wanted to lose her temper, she would inexplicably shrink back when she saw Xinqiu shouting at his soldiers with a sharp gaze. Feng and Ning herself did not understand. If Xie Jingxing of the residence of the Marquis of Linan was the male overlord of the Ding capital, then she could at least be called a female overlord. She didn't care about anything, so why couldn't she do anything to this pair of siblings? The eldest brother of the Feng family scolded her, saying that she only knew how to be unreasonable in her own home. Feng and Ning was resentful. Every time she said that the next time she saw Xinqiu, she must be arrogant, but when she really saw him, she would shrink her neck and walk over obediently. Even Shen Miao's Biao older sister, Luo Tan, felt that something was wrong and said, "Why is it that every time An Ran comes to the Shen mansion, it is quieter than usual?" Shen Miao said with a smile that was not a smile, it would be better to say that one must be quieter when seeing my eldest brother. Feng and Ning flew into a rage out of humiliation. What nonsense are you saying? If I want to be quiet, I can be quiet. Do I need someone else's permission? Luo Tan shouted towards Feng and Ning's back. Older brother Chiu, why did you suddenly come? Feng and Ning's body suddenly stiffened and wanted to run away. She saw Luo Tan pointing at her and was overjoyed. What youngest Biao sister said is true. Could it be that the eldest young lady of the Feng family is most afraid of older brother Chiu? Feng and Ning got up in anger and swore that she would never speak to Luo Tan again. It was the matter that was out of Feng and Ning's expectations. She went out with Shen Miao, and because of her negligence, Shen Miao fell into the hands of thieves. Feng and Ning naturally blamed herself in her heart, and Shen Qiu's attitude made her even more fearful. Chapter 1152. Shen Qiu mercilessly expressed his questions to her. Shen Miao's disappearance made Feng and Ning's heart uncomfortable. One did not know who was the one who told the Feng family's older brothers about Shen Qiu's angrily reprimanding Feng and Ning. The few older brothers felt sorry for their younger sister, and one after another said, "That eldest brother of the Shen family is too much. Since the matter has come to this, it is more important to search for the young lady of the Shen family. Why bother with a young lady like you? Don't you also blame yourself? How can one add hail to snow?" No. Feng and Ning covered her face and said, "He is right. It was originally my fault." She was worried about Shen Miao, and at the same time she was disgusted with herself. She felt that she was very hateful, and Shen Qiu definitely hated her. Fortunately, Shen Miao came back alive and nothing happened to her. But Feng and Ning did not dare to step into the Shen residence. It was not because of anything else, but she felt ashamed. If it was not for her, Shen Miao would not have suffered like this. Even though the result was good, the process was not fabricated. She actually wanted to go to the Shen mansion to see Shen Miao and quarrel with Luo Tan, or to see Shen Qiu, but she could only restrain herself. Even when Luo Tan sent her an invitation, Feng and Ning rejected it. She had an arrogant and willful temperament, and others might see that she was not sensible, but in fact she was very stubborn. She could not lower her head and was unable to act as if nothing had happened, thus she punished herself like this. Who knew that Shen Miao's marriage would have such a big mistake? When Feng and Ning heard her father and older brothers talk about some matters in court, she knew that the Shen family was the target of public criticism. Whoever married Shen Miao would not be a good thing for the Shen family, and it was even more so for Shen Miao. Her own marriage had become a victim of intrigue, so what could Shen Miao do? Feng and Ning thought of her eldest brother. Feng Zixian had a gentle temperament and upright features. The most important thing was that Feng and Ning understood her eldest brother and was definitely a gentleman. It was much better than marrying to the crown prince, so she persuaded her eldest brother to go to the Shen residence to propose. Feng Zixian was initially stunned, but he had indeed heard Feng and Ning talking about Shen Miao's matters. He felt that even though Feng and Ning was arrogant, this kind of person did not have any ulterior motives, and those that Feng and Ning thought were good would not be crafty. Feng Zixian promised Feng and Ning to go to the Shen residence to take a look, but was rejected by Shen Miao. Even so, the relationship between Feng and Ning and the Shen mansion eased up a little. Because she met Shen Qiu on the way back to the Fu, Shen Qiu should have already known about Feng Zixian's visit to the Fu. He glanced at her and thanked her. Just one word of thanks made Feng and Ning so excited that she tossed and turned in bed. Feng and Ning's personal maid carefully asked her, "Young lady value the eldest young master of the Shen family so much and is happy for him and worried for him. But do you like the eldest young master of the Shen family? What nonsense are you talking about?" Feng and Ning instinctively asked back. Her eyebrows were vertical like a cat whose tail was stepped on. The maid was startled and quickly knelt down, saying, this servant is talking nonsense. I hope Miss will forgive this servant this once. After a long time, one did not hear Feng and Ning's reply. Just as the maid was feeling uneasy, she heard a voice above her head, "Forget it, get up." Feng and Ning looked at the mirror and bit her lips. Just because some things were not admitted and not exposed didn't mean that they had never happened. Even her personal maid could see the matter clearly. Feng and Ning thought that most likely her performance was very obvious. At least she did not hide it from her personal maid, and it was even more impossible to hide it from Shen Miao's eyes. Shen Miao knew her own thoughts, and would she tell Shen Qiu? Then did Shen Qiu know about it? Feng and Ning looked at the mirror somewhat irritably. Chapter 1153. The young lady in the mirror had a dainty face with big eyes and a pretty nose. Her lips were slightly curled up, making her look like an eldest young lady. She was not afraid of heaven or earth, but she was only afraid of the two siblings of the Shen family. Not to mention Shen Miao, it was because Shen Miao was always somewhat mysterious. That Shen Qiu was perfectly fine, and in everyone's eyes, he was easy to talk to and was a good person with an open and honest temperament. What was she afraid of? What she was afraid of was not Shen Qiu but herself. In Shen Qiu's eyes, perhaps she was arrogant, willful and mischievous, unable to distinguish right from wrong and not knowing anything. When one was in love with a person, one would always examine oneself repeatedly in one's heart to see if there was anything that one did not do well. If the other party was outstanding, one would doubt oneself by 30% and not worthy of the other party. One would carefully want to show one's best side in front of him and work hard, but one could not help but feel unsettled and undecided, fearing that one would make a mistake. But the more nervous one was, the more mistakes one made and the more one would make a fool of oneself in front of the other. Shen Qiu reprimanded her because of Shen Miao's matter, and she was afraid that the other party would feel disgusted and sad, so when Shen Qiu thanked her, she would immediately be happy. She was happy and worried. Feng and Ning could think of the opera troupe outside the door where the courtesan sang with her orchid fingers. A bright red bean is planted on the grave of yearning. When the bean is ripe, it falls into the tip of the heart. Asking you, do you know? This singing was very tacky, but Feng and Ning felt that what was said was right. It was as if all her thoughts were sung out. But she also felt that she was hopeless as Shen Qiu did not seem to treat her any special. Feng and Ning was sad and bored, and felt that it was boring to sing alone. Unfortunately Shen Miao had married at this time and married to the great Liang that was thousands of li away. This not only meant that there would be one less friend in the Ding capital, it also meant that she would no longer have a reason to go to the Shen mansion and have her own secret thoughts. Feng and Ning was very disappointed. The world had changed and no one would have thought that there would be a sudden change in the Ding capital. Perhaps those smart people knew, the officials knew and the people in the palace knew, but Feng and Ning, an official's daughter who did not care about worldly affairs, was at a loss. In one night, Emperor Wen Hui was seriously ill and Prince Ding, Fu Xiu-yi, held the power. Some of the princes were dead, some were guilty, some were injured, and some were dead. Everyone in the Ding capital felt insecure. Feng and Ning did not know what happened, but she could see Feng Darren's dignified expression and how busy her older brothers were every day. Until one day, Feng and Ning called Feng and Ning to the Feng of Master. Feng and Ning did not know what was going on. Feng and Ning did not know. Feng and Ning sensitively guessed what Master Feng wanted to say next, but it was too sudden for her. Without thinking, Feng and Ning immediately replied, "Father, I still do not want to marry. I want to stay by father, mother and older brother's side." Feng Laoi, who had always doted on her, did not continue her words this time. Instead, he said, "Silly child, how can there be a young lady who stays in the Fu without marrying? You're Feng Yun. King Mo and older would older, your by older brother will come in. The meaning in these words was almost hinting. Feng and Ning was never one who could keep calm and immediately stood up and said agitatedly, Father, what do you mean by this? How can you be so rash? Master Feng frowned, what do you mean? Your Biao older brother came to the Ding capital, what is wrong with you as the Biao younger sister's reception? Reception. I am not a servant, so why do I have to receive them? Feng and Ning said, moreover there is still eldest brother and second brother. I will not go. Chapter 1154. You. Master Feng's face turned cold, must go. Since young, Master Feng had never said a harsh word to Feng and Ning, but today he did not give Feng and Ning any face in front of the servants. Feng and Ning felt sad and wronged and simply stood up, Father, our Feng family is not lacking in money and it is not worthwhile to sell one's daughter. This Biao older brother and I have not met for many years. Even if you do not find it awkward, I would have nothing to say. Could it be that you want to use the name of receiving him to let us become Biao older brother and younger sister? I will not do it. Whoever is willing can go, but I am not willing. She had stayed with Luo Tan for a long time and the words she said were somewhat vulgar. Master Feng suddenly stood up and gave a slap to Feng and Ning's face. Feng and Ning was stunned and her face was burning in pain. She stared at Master Feng in disbelief but saw that Master Feng did not even lift his eyelids and said, Scram back to your own room and reflect properly. Do not say that my Feng family has taught such a shameless daughter. The surrounding servants were all shocked. Master Feng had never been willing to hit Feng and Ning's little finger. There was once a teacher of Guangwen Tang who had hit Feng and Ning's palm because of homework, and when Master Feng saw the mark on Feng and Ning's palm, he said that he would fight with that teacher, but now he personally gave Feng and Ning a slap. Feng and Ning cried out as she ran out of the main door. She ran back to her room in one breath and closed the door before throwing herself onto the bed and crying out loud. She had only seen that distant Biao older brother once when she was young. That Biao older brother was slightly older than her and would smile and call his Biao younger sister's good handwriting. When he was young, he would recite good poems, but Feng and Ning had personally seen him kiss her personal maid's mouth when he was still young. Feng and Ning felt extremely disgusted and even told her own family about it, but the Feng family felt that she had seen wrongly and refused to believe her. Feng and Ning hated this Biao older brother even more. Not to mention receiving him, she did not even want to see him. Moreover, the meaning of Master Feng's words, Feng and Ning was not a 3-year-old child, so naturally she could understand the hint. Master Feng clearly had the intention to matchmake her and this Biao older brother who had a golden exterior but was rotten inside. The more Feng and Ning cried, the sadder she felt. The male that she liked did not like her and most likely felt that she was a burden. Her own father and brother wanted her to spend the rest of her life with someone she hated. Shen Miao and Luo Tan had both left and she did not have anyone to talk to in the Ding capital. She only felt that she had a belly full of grievances that she was unable to voice out. Now that her father was still beating her, Feng and Ning felt that her days were extremely difficult. But she was an arrogant and willful person. Not only was she arrogant and willful, she was also very stubborn. Master Feng could stop spoiling her and hate her, but she was as stubborn as before. She even started a hunger strike to protest. In short, she was not willing to give in and see that disgusting cousin. If it was in the past, her hunger strike would have kept her family busy, but this time, it didn't have any effect. In fact, old Master Feng's attitude became even more unyielding. Feng and Ning and Master Feng confronted each other like this until Feng Zixian returned from the Ding capital to know of the matter and came over to comfort her. Feng Zixian said, "Younger sister, do not blame father. Father also have no choice now. The situation in the Ding capital is in turmoil and our Feng family is in imminent danger. Father wished for you to get married earlier to avoid calamity. Chao's Biao older brother has a big business and you will not have to worry about food and clothing if you marry over. Moreover, he is considered talented and good-looking and is also a relative of our family, thus he would not treat you unfairly. Eldest brother knows that you have grievances in your heart, but today is different from the past. If there was no such thing, naturally you would be able to casually pick an ideal husband, but now. And Ning, you have to endure it. Father also has no choice. Marrying him is better than following our family and not knowing what the ending would be. Chapter 1155. Feng and Ning was startled when she heard this. No one had ever told her about this before. Some time ago, she saw that the Feng family was busy, and she felt that it was strange. But every time she asked, she was dismissed by Master Feng. Feng and Ning really did not link this matter to her own marriage. She asked, "Big brother, what do you mean by that? Is the Feng family going to be unlucky?" Without waiting for Feng Zixian to answer, she continued, "If the Feng family is really in danger, as the daughter of the Feng family, how can I turn a blind eye to it? Could it be that father thinks that marrying me off to avoid all this is for my own good? Since we're family, we should share our joys and sorrows together." Feng Zixian sighed and said, "Little sister, how could I not know what you're saying? It's just that many things aren't as simple as you think. It's good that you want to share weal and woe with the Feng family, but how could father and mother bear to do that? You've been spoiled since you were a child. We don't want anything to happen to you. Moreover, there are many people with ulterior motives. What if they use you to threaten the Feng family?" Feng Zixian paused for a moment before he said with difficulty, "Not only will you be of no help if you stay in the Feng clan, you'll instead distract father and mother, and you might even become the Feng clan's weak spot. If she marries into the Chao family, not only will my parents be at ease, but the Chao family might also be of some help." Feng and Ning did not speak for a long time. And ran. Seeing that she did not speak, Feng Zixian was a little worried. "Big brother, I'm fine." She took a deep breath and smiled at Feng Zixian. "Give me some time to think about it." Feng Zixian saw that she did not wish to speak further and knew that Feng and Ning would find it hard to accept such a change in a short period of time. He did not speak further and left on his own. After Feng Zixian left, Feng and Ning then looked blankly at the bronze mirror and her hands trembled slightly. Everyone had their own blessings and misfortunes. Feng and Ning did not expect that in just a short night, she could turn from a young lady that everyone envied into such a dangerous one. He didn't expect that he would become a burden. When he was young, he was too naive and reckless. He didn't know that the heavens were stingy and hateful. The blessings he gave you in the first half of your life must be repaid with an unstable future. On one hand, he could continue to live his life as he pleased, but on the other hand, he had to worry about his family. Feng and Ning thought, in the past when Shen Miao wanted to protect the Shen family, she was restrained at every turn and had to think carefully before doing anything. Was it also this tangled? She looked at herself in the mirror. Could the beautiful and arrogant young lady bear such a huge responsibility? It couldn't go on like this. Feng and Ning thought that even if one wanted to be arrogant, one must be pampered. Not everyone was a member of the Feng family, and not everyone could be protected by the Feng family for the rest of her life. Anyway, the person she liked didn't like her. Feng and Ning made up her mind. Feng and Ning's change made everyone surprised. She agreed to Master Feng's hint and decided to try to meet and chat with young Master Chao. Perhaps she would even become his wife in the future. The Feng family knew why, but they couldn't do anything about it. Among the few paths ahead, it seemed that this was the only path that could make Feng and Ning feel more relaxed. If it was possible, They did not want Feng and Ning to suffer any grievances, but when it came to the time where she had to suffer, they would rather her to suffer less. Feng and Ning's change was not only in her attitude towards Chao's Biao older brother, but also in her own temperament. It was as if she had changed into a different person overnight and became somewhat silent. In the eyes of outsiders, it was sensible and gentle, but in the eyes of the Feng family, it was regretful. But whenever they asked about Feng and Ning would only smile and say a few perfunctory words. Chapter 1156. Gentleman Chao was very satisfied with Feng and Ning. After all, Feng and Ning was born beautiful, and now that her temperament had changed, she was more gentle and likable. He rather liked her. In a blink of an eye, it was almost time to discuss about marriage. The Feng and Chao families exchanged their marriage cards. Feng and Ning sat in the room and looked at the flowers and plants outside in a daze. But she heard her personal maid running over in a hurry. Not good. Not good, young lady. What is the matter? Feng and Ning asked. Biao young master was beaten in the drunken immortal Lu. The maid said, he was beaten by eldest young master Shen of the general residence. Feng and Ning originally did not care about what the maid said, but when she heard the last sentence, she could not help but be shocked. You say? Beaten by who? The eldest young master of the Shen family, third Shen young lady's eldest brother. The maid was so anxious that her tears were about to fall. Gentleman Chao is making a ruckus in the residence, saying that he wants to cancel the marriage. When Feng and Ning reached the main hall, she saw Feng Furen and Master Feng calling Gentleman Chao virtuous nephew. Gentleman Chao, however, had an indignant look, and when he saw Feng and Ning appear, he immediately rushed over. Feng and Ning then saw that Gentleman Chao's face was green and purple, as if he was beaten up quite badly. Especially the two dark circles under his eyes. She couldn't help but laugh out loud. When Gentleman Chao saw it, he became even angrier out of humiliation and pointed at her nose as he scolded, since you already have an affair with that Shen Qiu, why is there a need for marriage with me? Could it be that you want to marry into my Chao family and wear a green hat with me? Shut up. Master Feng's face sunk. This Gentleman Chao's words were really unpleasant to hear. Even though he wanted Feng and Ning to marry over, but Feng and Ning was pampered by Master Feng since young, how could she be trampled on like this? Feng and Ning also stopped laughing and said, Gentleman Chao, be careful with your words. I thought that with Gentleman Chao's background, you would definitely not learn from others to stir up trouble. So it was me who thought wrongly. She had mingled with Shen Miao for a long time and had learned to treat others with some sarcasm. Gentleman Chao was dumbfounded for a moment before he sneered, why do you need to put on such a high and virtuous attitude? If you did not have a relationship with him, why would he stand up for you for no reason? Stand up for her. Feng and Ning frowned as Feng Zixian asked, Anua, what is going on? Anua was a servant in the Feng residence, and because Gentleman Chao was temporarily staying in the Feng residence, he was not familiar with the roads in the Ding capital. Thus, Feng Zixian transferred one of his manservants to young Master Chao's side to make things more convenient. Arnold stepped forward and looked at young Master Chao with fear and trepidation. Then, he slowly said. So this Gentleman Chao, on the surface, looked like he was concerned about Feng and Ning's well-being and looked like a person who abided by etiquette, but in private he was not serious at all. When Ning was in Nuo, Shi Chao Ning, drinking Xian Ning Qing, he was Ling and Ning Ning Yun Chao De, but she is Ning Yang Shi Feng Ling Qing Qing. When he was drinking in the drunken immortal restaurant, the group of scoundrels that he got to know in the Ding capital asked him, Young Master Chao, one heard that the Feng family's golden daughter has an arrogant and willful temperament. Since you are drinking and seeking pleasure here, shouldn't you restrain yourself in the future? What kind of joke is this? Gentleman Chao replied, it is right and proper for a male to socialize outside. Moreover, now that I have married her, it is giving her a high status. My Chow family is not a place where any female can enter. If it was not because of her docile and well-behaved temperament, she would not have the chance to enter my Chow residence. Docile and well-behaved. Isn't it said that young Lady Feng is arrogant and domineering and considers everyone beneath her? Gentleman Chow smiled proudly. It is just a false rumor. Most likely she knows of her own identity, thus she deliberately fawned on me. Forget it, seeing that she is so obedient and hardworking. If she doesn't cause trouble for me in the future and is cautious, I will also love her more. In the end, he said some dirty jokes. It was really a bit too much. Chapter 1157. Gentleman Chow was pleased with himself when he saw a person striding over from the side of the banquet. Before he could react, he received a solid punch and was beaten to the ground. That person punched and kicked Gentleman Chow until he cried for his father and mother. That person then said, "The Feng family's eyesight in picking a son-in-law is really bad. Such a weakling still wants to marry the Feng family's young lady." The surrounding people were stunned. Gentleman Chow had lost his face and was beaten up, making him extremely angry. Upon asking about that person's identity, it was the eldest young master of the general residence. He could not afford to offend Shin Chiu, so he came over to make things difficult for the Feng family. When Master Feng and Feng Furen heard it, their faces turned green. They were not angry at Shin Chiu but angry at Gentleman Chow's actions. Initially they thought that he was a relative and this person's performance was very appropriate. If it was not for this incident today, they would not know that Gentleman Chow had such a face in private. Since he looked down on Feng and Ning, why would he come over to propose marriage? If Feng and Ning were to enter the Chow residence's doors, would he not be jumping into a fire pit? A person who did not even respect his own wife, how could one expect him to love and care for Feng and Ning for a lifetime? Master Feng was furious. "I see that you really deserve a beating. Since you look down on the Feng family cannot afford to have such a big character like you." Scram! Gentleman Chow was surprised for a moment and said in disbelief, "What? Did you not hear? I told you to scram." Feng and Ning said coldly. She did not hide the disgust in her eyes. Many years ago, she had personally seen this surnamed Chow playing with maids and did not have any illusions about him. If it was not to help the Feng family, she would not be willing to compromise. Since they had already shed all pretense of cordiality, there was nothing more to say. In her heart, there was actually some rejoicing. Gentleman Chow still wanted to say something but was chased out by the green-faced Feng Zixian. When Feng Furen saw Feng and Ning, her heart was extremely sour as she almost let her daughter fall into the fire pit. It was Feng and Ning who comforted her instead. But Feng and Ning's marriage was ultimately ruined. Not needing to deal with the disgusting older cousin, Feng and Ning's days were much more relaxed. Even though the Feng family was still in a precarious situation, she was no longer as stubborn as before. Everything would take its course. But she did not expect to meet Shin Chiu on the way out. She was a little hesitant and didn't know what to say. When they met again, it was awkward, abrupt, and she didn't know what to do. She was no longer as straightforward as she usually was. Shin Chiu was one step ahead of her. Feng and Ning saw him walking in. He was tall and mighty, handsome and suave. Compared to those soft gentlemen, it was as if his entire body was cast from iron. She panicked for a moment and blurted out, "Why did you hit young Master Chow?" Shin Chiu frowned and said, "What's wrong with that kind of person? You shouldn't have hit him." Feng and Ning shook her head. Now is an eventful period. If he were to feel resentment because of this, it is inevitable that he would turn around and do something behind one's back. To shed all pretense of cordiality at this time. Actually, she didn't know why she said that. She was just trying to find something to say in a panic. Shin Qiu stared at her. If I hadn't hit him, would you have married such a person? Feng and Ning was startled for a moment before saying softly, perhaps, there is nothing wrong with this. There is nothing wrong with this. There was a trace of anger in Shin Qiu's tone as he said, that kind of softy, indulging in debauchery outside and even talk about fiancé behind one's back. Are you willing to marry? Feng and Ning raised her head and looked at him. What does this have to do with Deputy General Shin? She was a little looking forward to it. Before Jiao Jiao left, she instructed me to look after you well. If one knew that you married such a thing, one would definitely be angry. Shin Qiu said, naturally it is related to me. Feng and Ning was sad, many thanks to Deputy General Shin's concern, but today is different from the past. In the Ding capital, those who dare to marry me are as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns. I do not have much choice, but still thank you for your good intentions. Shin Qiu was startled. After Feng and Ning finished speaking, she gently bowed to him and turned around to leave. She had always been as straight as a ramrod, proud like a stallion that was ignorant of the ways of the world. But now, looking at her back, she was very thin. Shin Qiu felt a bet in his heart for no reason. He only felt that the somewhat arrogant and willful young lady who would be afraid when she looked at him, had grown up. But after growing up, there was an additional sadness for no reason that one could not bear to see. His actions were faster than his rationality. He suddenly took a big step forward and grabbed Feng and Ning's arm, pulling her back. Feng and Ning turned back and looked at him in surprise. Shin Qiu looked at her eyes and in a moment, he made a decision. A decision that he could not help but smile when he thought about it in a very long time later. It was also a decision that he was glad about for a lifetime. He said, nonsense. How is there no choice? What do you think of me? Feng and Ning's eyes suddenly widened. What do you think of me? Is it better than that surname Chao? He repeated it again. A military general valued relationships and was not like a scholar who beat around the bush. He was direct and passionate, sincere and sincere. Feng and Ning's face suddenly blushed. She said, if I say good, is this considered as a private gift? This time it was Shin Qiu's turn to be stunned. But he saw that young lady smiling like a flower as she looked up at him and said word by word, good. Chapter 1158. Emperor Xiaojing announced his abdication at the age of 15 and 58. This was really out of everyone's expectations. Emperor Xiaojing was at the prime of his life and his body was healthy. It was a good time, so how could he abdicate just like that? But after so many years, Emperor Xiaojing and Empress Shin both really sat on the word willful. Looking at the history, there was no emperor or empress who was so casual. There were no inner palace with 3,000 beauties and only one empress. It was not that the officials did not think of ways, but in the end, other than finding trouble for themselves, there was really no way to shake Empress Shin's position. Moreover, Empress Shin had a strong maternal family, so after a while, the officials also followed along. Anyway, Empress Shin gave birth to 2 sons and the great Liang had a successor. But even if there was a successor, one could not let them ascend the throne so early. First and 15th names, one was Xie Shu and the other was Xie Wu. It was because not long after the children turned 1 year old, when they were about to be given names, Priest Qi Yan appeared out of nowhere and said that it was difficult for the 2 children to be born and to grow up safely, they had to be given female names to suppress it. Therefore, Xie Jingxing gave his 2 children such names. Xie Shu and Xie Wu gradually grew up and became sensible, and because of the name issue, there were many quarrels with Xie Jingxing, but even the good talker Shen Miao was not willing to change their names. Gradually one got used to it. Xie Shu was like Shen Miao's temperament, steady and sensible, mature at a young age. Xia Wu was like another Xie Jingxing, walking around the streets and alleys every day, looking like a frivolous noble gentleman, but those who were familiar with him knew that Xia Wu had a belly full of bad water and was even worse than Xie Jingxing. But the relationship between the two brothers was very good. Now that Xia Shu was the crown prince and was about to ascend the throne, Xia Wu was the king of Yunnan. The officials rode in with tears and snot, all criticizing Xie Jingxing that he should not leave so early. Xia Shu was still young and could not control the situation. His methods of handling the court matters were immature and one feared that it would not be peaceful. But how would Xie Jingxing listen to the officials' words? Xie Jingxing's temperament was overbearing and the words of the officials were farts in his eyes. Moreover, he had already made up his mind to abdicate and even 9 bulls could not pull him back. How would he change his mind because of a few documents? Shen Miao was even more calm. After being an empress for so many years, at the beginning many people wanted to take advantage of her, but in the end after she became independent, her life was very stable. To say something strange, it was as if she had been an empress for many years. He had handled it cleanly, and no one could find any fault with it. He had even accidentally become famous all over the world, and those stubborn old fools could not find any fault with him. At this moment, one could not find a fault and one could not find it at all. Time seemed to treat him very well. Even though his 2 sons had already grown into handsome and beautiful youths, he was still as suave and handsome as ever. Xia of, eldest, of Xia, he of Xia, he of. He Lekov his. Of his 2 of, of the 2 of. I, your father, will hand over this country to you. Do it well and do not let me come back midway to clean up the mess. In private, he would never address himself as Zhen in front of his 2 sons. In the eyes of outsiders, there was no sense of hierarchy and it was the biggest taboo. But Xie Jingxing did not care about etiquette and did not want to be estranged from his sons because of these ranks. Perhaps it was because of the family's misfortune that he was more sensitive to such matters. Xie Shu calmly agreed, but it was Xia Wu who lazily said, "Do not worry. Both of us brothers are not that stupid. It is easy to say." Xie Jingxing raised his brows. "You must not underestimate the people in the palace. At the beginning when your father, I, ascended the throne, it was not that simple. Now that there is a change of people, naturally they will find fault. Little brats, you are still too inexperienced and the other party are all old foxes. Do not be too full of words." Chapter 1159. Father, do not worry. Xie Shu's expression did not change at his father's threat. This son can handle it. An old fox is after all a fox while eldest brother is a tiger. Xia Wu scoffed. Moreover, if eldest brother really cannot do it, there is still me. You really dare to say it? Xie Jingxing narrowed his eyes. Eldest brother, look after this brat for me. Since young, Xia Shu did not need anyone to worry about him and was very calm at such a young age. It was Xia Wu who gave others a headache. One did not know how many mistakes he had made in Longyi since young, and he was just like another Xie Jingxing. It was just that Xie Jingxing had the Marquis of Lin who was the same as him. Now Xia Wu's father was the Empress, and if one was not careful, it would provoke the impeachment of the imperial censor. Fortunately there was Xia Shu who would always clean up Xia Wu's mess and clean up many messes for him. It was just that as Xia Shu grew up, the crown prince's words and actions would be noticed by others, thus it was not good to help Xia Wu like when he was young. Xia Wu simply supported himself, and what he needed to do every day was to make trouble, make up for it, make trouble again and make up again. It could be said that in the younger generation of the Longyi officials' family, there was no one who did not suffer from Xia Wu's poison. Xiao Wu's bad heart was better than the master. Now that Xia Shu was appointed and Xia Jingxing was about to bring Shen Miao out to travel, Xia Jingxing could even close his eyes to know what Xia Wu was planning. Most likely Xia Wu was thinking that since the younger generation were more or less cleaned up, it was time to go and harm the old fellows of the Longyi official's family. Xia Wu said innocently, "Father, how can you not believe me? Am I that kind of person? If eldest brother really become the emperor, if someone were to find trouble, there would be many things that would be inconvenient to appear and one would need to use some special means. Isn't that right, eldest brother?" He blinked his eyes at Xia Shu. Xia Shu expressionlessly turned his head away and avoided Xia Wu's hint. Xia Jingxing's lips hooked up. "Since you said it like that, I feel that Tai Yi and Mo Qing should be watching you. Father, you cannot do this." Xia Wu immediately said, but after thinking about it, he felt relieved. "But if you want to do it, then do it. Anyway, Mo Qing and Tai Yi would not be able to beat me." Xia Jingxing slapped the table. "Little brat, are you thinking of rebelling?" As soon as he finished speaking, he heard someone outside the door say, "Who wants to rebel?" Shen Miao walked in from the door. She really didn't look like the mother of 2 children. Instead, after so many years, it was as if a piece of jade had been polished to become smoother and glossier. She was a natural beauty, quiet and dignified, making people unable to take their eyes off her. Xia Shu and Xia Wu hurriedly called out for their mother. Shen Miao walked over and glared at Xia Jingxing. "What nonsense are you talking about?" Xia Jingxing said, "I am talking nonsense. Do you believe this brat?" Then he scolded Xia Wu, "You ingrate, your father, changed your diaper and fed you milk. It's like I fed a dog." Xia Shu, Xia Wu, Shen Miao. Speaking of which, during the time when Shen Miao was in deep sleep, Xia Jingxing indeed treated Xia Shu and Xia Wu very well. Personally taking care of the feces and urine, changing the wet nurse, and hugging her to sleep at night, it was simply everything important and trivial. Others said that with Xia Jingxing's temperament, it was really inconceivable that he could be so gentle to a child. But Xia Jingxing really did it. What Xia Jingxing displayed in that period of time was indeed a gentle and considerate father. But ever since Shen Miao woke up, he found these 2 brats to be an eyesore no matter how he looked at them. He kept saying that the child must grow up to be a man earlier, and that kind of sharpening made outsiders feel heartache. It was also because Xia Shu and Xia Wu had strong willpower that they did not grow crooked at such a young age, and in terms of talent and conduct, they were the best in the Great Liang. And both of their looks had inherited the advantages of their parents, being handsome and beautiful with a natural temperament. Xia Shu was cold and Xia Wu was romantic. Many young ladies from official families in Longyi secretly admired them. But these 2 children also said in front of outsiders that they wanted to be like their parents in this lifetime, to only marry one female and be in love with her till their hair turns white. Thus the parents of official families felt that it was too difficult, and the young ladies from official families or commoners admired this pair of brothers even more. Such an outstanding male that was affectionate and righteous was one of a kind in the world. For Xia Jingxing and Shen Miao, this pair of emperor and empress, to have such a virtuous reputation in the Great Liang, other than being able to govern the country, it was also because Xia Shu and Xia Wu were very likable. Xia Shu and Xia Wu naturally did not treat this strict father as kindly as they treated their loving mother, thus Xia Jingxing was often indignant, saying that these 2 little brats were not as tactful as that Jiao Jiao that he raised. Shen Miao said, "Shu, Wu, in the beginning, there will be many officials that will target you. It is not that they are not good, but at the very beginning, they will experience all these. There is no need to bother with them. Shu, you only need to do what you should do. If there is really that stubborn, Wu, you have always been smart and know what is the best to do. She actually encouraged Xia Wu to use some special means. Xia Wu indeed became excited. Indeed, there is no one who knows me better than mother. Furen. Xie Jingxing said, you also want to play around with them. Ah, Wu's means are much gentler than yours in the past. Moreover, one cannot be rigid in doing things in this world. It is naturally good to be tactful in moderation. Ah Shu, mother is not worried about your ability, and mother also has nothing to instruct you. What to instruct? If you meet a young lady that you like, then do not hesitate. Xia Shu, Xia Wu said, correct. Eldest brother should have long found a eldest saw for me. And you? Shen Miao stared at him, you better restrain yourself for me. Do not think that I do not know how many young ladies in Longyi have been teased by you. If one do not like, then do not go and tease, as one would waste one's life for no reason. Speaking of this, Shen Miao was so angry that she glared at Xie Jingxing. What kind of father would have what kind of son? All the same. Xie Jingxing innocently touched his nose. When Xia Wu saw that the topic had turned to him, he quickly changed the topic. Mother, do not say it like that. Speaking of which, how long are you going to travel for? When your mother has a younger sister, we will return. Xie Jingxing interrupted. It cannot be. Xia Wu exaggeratedly said, you are already so old. The rest of the words disappeared under Shen Miao's stern gaze. After seeing a good scenery and going to a good place, one will naturally return home. Shen Miao said. That was the dream of one's youth, and in the past days, due to various reasons, one had to put it on hold. Fortunately, there was still a chance now, and one's life was still very long, and it was so fulfilling and satisfying. Xie Shu smiled gently. Father and mother, rest assured that this son will not disappoint. One will also find a wife. Xia Wu added. Chapter 1160. When Xie Shu and Xia Wu were 10 years old, some of the officials in court were getting restless and reported to Emperor Shao Jing, saying that there should be some new people in the inner palace. It was reasonable to say that Xie Jingxing as an emperor should be the most unbridled emperor in history, and no one could control him. In the past it was because Shen Miao was the empress, and since she had 2 sons, it was not good for the officials to say anything. But after a long time, others felt that the 2 princes were already 10 years old, and the heart of the emperor might not be as firm as it was in the beginning. There were many people who took advantage of every gap and thought that if new people were to be invited into the palace, perhaps the emperor would not be so resistant, and perhaps it would be to his liking. Thus this time, it was a group of officials who jointly accused Shen Miao as the empress, that she should think of spreading more branches and leaves for the imperial family and not be jealous and narrow-minded. When Luo Tan heard of the matter, she rushed into the palace with Feng and Ning in a rage and said, "Are these people rebelling? Why bother so much about other people's family matters? Do not know how to manage one's own backyard properly. Their hands are reaching too far." More than 10 years had passed, but Luo Tan's fiery temperament had not changed. This was probably due to Gao Yang's indulgence towards her. It was not an easy thing for a person to maintain their temperament for so many years. Luo Tan also had a son who was younger than Xie Shu and Xia Wu by 2 years, Gao Zicheng. Gao Zicheng was born with the same hand as Gao Yang, and his temperament was similar to Gao Yang. He looked gentle and well-behaved but loved to do bad things with Xia Wu. It could be seen that he had a white face and a black belly. Luo Tan had long gotten used to tidying up this father and son pair in the room, so she immediately said, "Biao, younger sister, why not find someone to beat up these mischievous people and see if they still dare to talk in the future? How can the matter be so simple?" Feng and Ning instead advised, "The imperial family matters are not something that one can decide by oneself. From what I see, the source of this matter is not the Empress but His Majesty the Emperor. Those officials do not give up their evil intentions and one must wait for His Majesty to express his stance before they can completely dispel their thoughts. Feng and Ning was now much gentler than the arrogant and willful rich young lady she was when she was young, and her words were clear and logical. That year, because of the change in the Feng family, Feng and Ning grew up a lot overnight. After living with Shinqiu for a long time, they would naturally become similar. She had a daughter who was only 6 years old. Her name was Shinqiu, and she would always follow behind Xia Shu, Xia Wu, and Gao Zicheng, calling them big brother, non-stop. Shinqiu's temperament was not like Feng and Ning or Shinqiu. She was so gentle that it made one's heart ache. Easy for you to say. Luo Tan said, I think Your Majesty's brother-in-law is already doing very well, but those people always think that their family's daughter is as beautiful as a fairy, any man would throw himself at her. Cousin was doing so well in the position of Empress. She didn't cause any trouble, right? She was indeed a virtuous Empress, but what about those people? She was just nitpicking at people and couldn't bear to see them doing well. Hey, cousin, why aren't you saying anything about such an important matter? You still have the mood to drink tea. Shen Miao's expression did not change and was still holding the teacup. She calmly took a sip and said, Heaven wants to reign and mother wants to marry. What can I do? She was not anxious at all. After so many years, Shen Miao did not seem to have aged but became even more beautiful. She was like a piece of jade that was meticulously taken care of and became more lustrous and magnificent. Her temperament also became more peaceful and there were rarely times when she would get angry. It was as if the young female who would trip others up with just a word of disagreement had disappeared. But only Shen Miao herself knew if she had disappeared or not. When Luo Tan saw her like this, she said dispiritedly, You really have a big heart. Did you not think that if His Majesty's brother-in-law was bewitched by others and really bring back a concubine for you? One would see it in the inner palace every 2 or 3 days and one would feel so stifled. If Gao Yang dared to do so, I would immediately separate from him and not care about him. But you are different. You cannot easily separate from him. Don't tell me you want to keep your anger bottled up in your stomach. So hateful. Feng and Ning shook her head and felt that Luo Tan said it too simply, but she could not find any other way and was deeply worried. Shen Miao however did not take it seriously and smiled, If you really want the Na-6 to enter the palace, I will go and find a few gigolos. There are many beauties in the world and there are also many males. This way it would be more fair. She said it lightly, but Luo Tan and Feng and Ning were dumbstruck when they heard it. Feng and Ning said, You, good, Biao youngest sister. Luo Tan slapped her thighs, I knew that you are not one to resign yourself to adversity. You did well and in the future I will also treat Gao Yang like this. If Gao Yang dares to bring me any concubines outside, I will go and find a few of his mistresses. It is not that I cannot find one. At the very least, I will use money to throw it. Anyway, I have money in my account now. Feng and Ning did not know whether to laugh or cry. Luo Tan actually followed along and made trouble. Do not worry. Shen Miao saw Feng and Ning's thoughts and comforted her, I am fine. It is not a day or two for those officials to have thoughts, and since when did they succeed? Who said that when a female reaches a certain age, one would become old and yellow like pearls? There is no such thing. It is just the shackles that the people of the world place on females. If he treats me well, then I will treat him wholeheartedly. If he does not treat me well, then I am not a living bodhisattva that is willing to dedicate myself. That is true. Luo Tan nodded her head. Both of them chatted with Shen Miao for a while, and seeing that Shen Miao really did not put this matter in her heart, they then felt relieved. After Luo Tan and Feng and Ning left, Xia Shu and Xia Wu came to look for Shen Miao. Imperial Mother, Yumu and Jimu are looking for you. Is it because of the matter of this official recruiting new people for father's inner palace? Xiao Wu went straight to her face the moment he entered the hall. His character was jumpy, and at such a young age, he had already learned all of Xie Jingxing's bad tricks. Xie Shu reprimanded, "Second younger brother, do not speak nonsense." Xie Shu was much more steady than Xie Wu. Shen Miao asked Xie Wu, "So what if it is? What crooked ideas do you have?" Xie Wu said, "Imperial Mother is wrongly accused. This son only want to share Imperial Mother's worries. Imperial Mother cannot agree to Imperial Father to let people enter the inner palace." Shen Miao was simply amused by him and asked, "I have never heard of a son managing the father's backyard. But we are the Imperial family. If those strange women were to enter the palace, not to mention other things, this son would not worry about Imperial Mother. Imperial Mother is so powerful and those women are not Imperial Mother's opponent. But if those women use some underhanded means to get a son, in the future they would have thoughts that they should not have. What if they have evil intentions towards eldest brother and frame eldest brother? Imperial Mother also know that eldest brother has an upright temperament and disdains such schemes. At that time when he suffers a loss, it would not be a small matter." Xie Shu was extremely helpless. "Second younger brother, do not speak nonsense anymore." Xie Wu was the younger brother and at this moment he was seriously lecturing Xie Shu. If one did not know, one would think that he was the eldest brother. "You really think long-term for your eldest brother?" Shen Miao smiled. Shu herself has not said anything. Imperial Mother. Xie Shu said, "Even though second younger brother speaks nonsense, but this son also think that if it is possible, it is better not to let people enter the palace. It is not for myself. In the past, Imperial Mother had suffered a lot in order to be with Imperial Father. Imperial Father also promised Imperial Mother to only have 2 people in this lifetime. If others were to interfere, would it not be a violation of the vow? This son does not wish for Imperial Mother to be sad." Shen Miao looked at her 2 sons and saw that they already had the spirit of handsome youths and could not help but feel sentimental. In the past, after giving birth to Xie Shu and Xie Wu, she slept for a year and it was most likely because of this reason that Xie Shu and Xie Wu became more intimate with her after she woke up. No matter what happened, they would always stand by her side. "I know. I will handle this matter." Shen Miao smiled, "You all do not have to worry. It will be fine very soon." But Imperial Father has not clearly expressed that he is not willing to accept people. Xie Wu said, "Imperial Mother, are you not worried at all?" "Wu, I will tell your Imperial Father about the matter that you do not believe in your Imperial Father." Shen Miao replied with a smile. Xie Wu lightly coughed twice. This son naturally believes in Imperial Father. Imperial Mother, this son and eldest brother will not disturb you anymore. Sit slowly. If there is any difficult problem that cannot be solved, then call this son. Xie Wu pulled Xie Shu and ran away like a wisp of smoke. Shen Miao looked at the back view of the 2 of them and unconsciously pressed her forehead. She really did not take the matter to heart, but it was others who worried for her. These few days, Shen Xian, Luo Shuiyan, Feng and Ning, Luo Tan and even Ji Yu Shu all came to look for her and seriously told her that this matter could not be tolerated. Heaven knew that she was too lazy to care about these things. If Xie Jingxing really wanted to bring the 6 people into the palace, how would she be able to stop it? Of course, even though she could not stop it, she would not let it develop. At night, Shen Miao sat in Kuan Ning Palace reading. The autumn day was very cool and as she read, she felt that someone was standing behind her. Without needing to turn her head, Shen Miao knew who it was. Sure enough, in the next moment, Xie Jingxing's voice rang in her ears. Shen Jiaojiao, it is so late, why are you still reading? Shen Miao turned her head back. Under the light, his face was handsome, and he wore a purple gold robe. When they were alone, the emperor's aura on his body disappeared completely. It was as if he was still the playboy from back then, with a mischievous smile on his face. Heard that today you said that if I bring the 6 people into the palace, I will raise a few gigolos. Shen Miao raised her eyebrows. Who told you that? Gao Zicheng. Shen Miao was silent. Gao Yang's son really wished for the world to be in chaos. Today, when she was talking with Feng and Ning and Luo Tan, most likely he was hiding somewhere to eavesdrop. He actually tattled behind her back. What he said is wrong. Shen Miao said. Xie Jingxing was satisfied and said, I just said, after thinking about it, a few gigolos would not be enough to appease the anger. It would be better to choose 10 more, so that it would be the same people coming and going, and it would be too boring. The smile on Xie Jingxing's face disappeared and he looked fiercely at Shen Miao, Shen Jiaojiao. Shen Miao looked at him calmly. How? You really have grown some ability. He gritted his teeth as he replied. Regarding the matter of raising gigolos, it made him recall a distant memory. At that time when Shen Miao was drunk, she treated him as a gigolos. He still remembered Shen Miao's picky look towards him at that time. Could it be that there was a gigolos hidden in her heart and when the time came, she could not wait to drill out? A trace of vigilance flashed in Xie Jingxing's heart. He pulled Shen Miao over and lowered his head to kiss her lips. This kiss was filled with anger, displeasure, and punishment, but in the end, it actually became lingering and gentle. After the kiss ended, he then released Shen Miao and said, Do not even think about raising gigolos. What is this? Shen Miao deliberately put on a straight face. Only the officials are allowed to set fires but the commoners are not allowed to light the lamps. Do not worry. From tomorrow onwards, the officials will not mention about the consort selection. This time, Shen Miao was really curious and asked, Why? I told them that in a short while, I will be setting up the crown prince. There is an order of seniority and our family's population is simple so there will not be any fight for the throne. When eldest son and second son are of age, I will abdicate the position. Rather than wasting time on me, it is better to find eldest son. Which family has a fresh and lively young lady and groom her into a lady from a respectable family? Is it not good to be eldest son's foreign? There is no need to be a concubine here. When those old men heard what I said, they felt that it was very reasonable and immediately went back to pick their granddaughters. He said it carelessly and Shen Miao was dumbstruck when she heard it. This person could even think of a way to divert the trouble. She said, Shu'er is only 10 years old. So what? What is wrong with sacrificing a little for his parents? It is better than you looking for gigolos. He returned back to the original topic. No matter how this person looked on the outside, the vile and indecent nature in his bones could not be changed no matter what. He was as cunning as a day after 10 years. Shen Miao was simply speechless and it was inevitable that Xia Wu would always complain about Xie Jingxing in front of her. How could there be a father that would cheat his son like this and he did it so smoothly? Rogue, she said. Although it was shameless, Xie Jingxing's method was really good. Because from that day onwards, the officials did not mention about adding new people to the inner palace and Shen Miao was much more peaceful. But the unlucky one was Xie Shu. Inexplicably, he was surrounded by young ladies everywhere. The granddaughters of the prime minister residence, the young wives of the general's family, the granddaughters of the grand tutor. Everything that one should expect. Xie Shu was unspeakably bitter but did not know what was going on. Shen Miao, who knew the inside story, could not bear to tell the name of the culprit to Xie Shu, otherwise if Xie Shu knew that it was his biological father who spared no effort to cheat him, he would be so angry that he would vomit blood. The heavy responsibility of how to punish these granddaughters with bad intentions fell onto Xia Wu's shoulders. But that was a matter for later. The correct chapters of The Rebirth of the Jiangmen, Empress of Poison, will continue to be updated on Qingdou novel website. There will be no advertisements in the website. Everyone please bookmark and recommend to Qingdou novel website. You're tuning in to the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.